Hey guys, tonight we're traveling beneath a canopy of stars along one of the most legendary trade routes in human history. The Silk Road stretches ahead like a ribbon woven from moonlight and dust, where caravans creak, camel bells sing softly, and ancient stories ride the wind between dunes. You're part of this slow-moving procession, a small figure wrapped in layers of cloth, your boots sinking into cool desert sand as the darkness hums with the breath of beasts and the hush of distant unseen eyes. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. And tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? And what time is it for you? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your scarf is tied high to catch the fine sand, and your hood rests low to shield from the silvery sting of the moon. The desert is not empty, it rustles with secrets.
Your camel snorts perhaps in protest of your humming, or maybe just bored of the same lullaby you keep repeating from last night. You're part of a caravan making its way through the Taklamakan Desert, a name that roughly means go in and you won't come out. Comforting. The camel in front of you keeps twitching its backside unusually often. You suspect it either has fleas or a grudge. You don't blame it. This particular journey's been grueling, long days, hot air, thick with spice and sweat, and now this eerie calm under the stars. Tonight you walk beside the caravan instead of riding. Not for bravery or spiritual reflection, your legs are sore from too much saddle. Your thighs feel like overcooked flatbread, wobbly and burnt. Someone behind you chuckles at your slow gait. Probably Amir the raisin hoarder. He claims raisins improve tactical decision-making, which is odd because last week he tried to bribe a border guard with prune paste. Your group is 30 strong. Traders, guards, scholars, even a couple of traveling musicians who've started competing to see who can annoy the camels most. Your hired muscle, though you're more sarcastic than savage. Your primary weapon is a curved dagger, and your secondary is deadpan commentary. The caravan's lead is a one-eyed man named Farid, who insists on walking with a brass lantern, even though the moonlight is enough to see by. When asked why, he said, "So ghosts can spot us and decide they don't want the trouble." Reasonable. As the wind whispers across the dunes, you glance up. Stars crowd the sky, sharp and numerous, as though someone spilled diamonds across a velvet cloth. One seems to flicker oddly, then you realize it's moving. A lone fire balloon. A signal from another group, or just your tired eyes playing tricks. You reach the rear of the caravan where a young boy, maybe 12, rides a donkey that looks older than the mountains. The boy's asleep in the saddle, arms wrapped around a clay jar. His name is Lin, and he claims he's delivering the most valuable thing on this road. He refuses to say what's inside, though someone swears it once meowed. To your right, the dunes stretch for miles, soft waves of pale sand under the moon, whispering in folds and furrows. There's a faint scent of cardamom in the air, mixed with old leather and distant smoke. Somewhere up ahead, a flute begins to play, not skillfully. You hear a camel groan in protest. Someone yells, "No more scales." The flute stops. Brief applause follows. You smirk. The road beneath your feet is not truly a road at all, but a memory, pressed into the earth by centuries of hooves and hopes. Traders from the west, monks from the east, conquerors, refugees, dreamers, all have crossed these sands. Historians still argue whether the earliest Silk Road traffic was trade pilgrimage or just people fleeing their in-laws. Tonight, the desert air feels watchful. It has that peculiar hush, that makes you check your shadow. You do. It's there long and slightly hunched from the weight of your pack. But for a flicker of a moment it seems delayed. You chalk it up to fatigue. Still you mutter a prayer to the desert spirits. It involves salt silence and a promise not to mock their hairstyles. Hours pass. The rhythm of travel becomes hypnotic. Step sway, crunch, jingle. You catch snippets of conversation. Someone argues that Egyptian cotton is better than Chinese silk, while another insists that dyed camel wool will be the next big export. You silently vow never to wear dyed camel wool. Then a glimmer ahead, a flickering campfire. Farid halts the caravan. You draw closer. It's a traveller alone with 2 camels and a cooking pot balanced precariously over hot stones. He smiles as if expecting you, says his name is Rafiq and offers tea. Farid raises an eyebrow but accepts. So does everyone else. The tea is strong bitter and flavoured with what you're pretty sure is cloves and regret. Rafiq claims he's waiting for someone. When asked, who, he shrugs and says, "They'll know me." You find that equal parts cryptic and inconvenient. As you sip, you hear about a city swallowed by sand, where libraries were left open to the wind. He says the books were bound in silk and the sand turned the ink into glass. Probably nonsense, but in this place who can say? The camels settle into their peculiar sleeping shapes, knees bent, heads low, occasionally making alarmingly human noises. You roll out your mat and lie back, the sky above you swirling with stars. Sleep tugs at your eyelids. You think of home, then forget what home is. The night hums softly, the desert exhales, and somewhere just beyond the reach of the firelight something watches without malice. Only curiosity. Morning slithers in slowly first, as a bruise of violet on the horizon, then gold, then heat. You squint into the light, wrapped in the musty scent of your own cloak. The tea from last night left your tongue feeling like it's been sandpapered. A distant camel sneezes. You can relate. As the caravan shakes itself awake, you go about your usual check pack, still intact dagger, still sheathed boots, less muddy than expected. Someone hums a tune that's half lullaby, half warning, and then you spot him again, the cinnamon trader. He's sitting on a folded rug, far too clean for this world, sipping something that steams politely from a silver cup. His boots gleam unnaturally, they almost wink at the sun. You're not sure whether to be impressed or concerned. Morning desert night, he says with a bow that creaks at the waist. His name is Darius, or so he claims, though it might be Dario or Darren or just a very enthusiastic liar. He has a flair for the dramatic silk robes with unnecessary embroidery, a beaded turban, and a set of pan flutes strapped across his chest like a bandolier.
"Guard me today," he says lightly, "and I'll teach you the tune that drives scorpions away. You squint. How do you know I don't like scorpions?" He smiles, unbothered. "Because you don't snore with your mouth open. You don't know what that means. You decide not to ask." He insists on walking beside you as the caravan lurches back into motion, plucking notes on one of his flutes, though not the one that allegedly repels insect. This one produces a sound that can only be described as troubled duck. One camel starts walking sideways in protest. You learn in bursts that Darius is transporting an impressive cargo cinnamon nutmeg clove and what he claims is the powdered eyelash of a snow leopard. He says it's an aphrodisiac. You say it smells like burnt socks. Historians still argue whether cinnamon reached the Mediterranean from Ceylon via the Silk Road or by sea. But here it is, now packed into silk-wrapped bundles, its scent sharp and sweet even in this dry wind.
Darius guards it obsessively, constantly checking his satchels as if one might have grown legs. He tells you a story about a merchant who tried to smuggle spice by hiding it in the bandages of a fake mummy. Apparently it worked until the camel carrying the mummy sneezed so violently that the bandages unraveled mid-bazaar. Some say that mummy still haunts the price of pepper. Darius finishes eyes twinkling. You laugh once, you regret it immediately. His flute returns. Around midday you both take shelter under a rock ledge, sharing shade with two goats and a man arguing loudly with his own reflection in a brass mirror. Darius unpacks a velvet pouch and offers you dried mango slices. You trade him half a fig and the last of your sarcasm. It's here that he reveals his actual concern. "I think someone's following me," he says, softly, eyes scanning the distant heat shimmer. "Not a thief, someone worse, a tax collector. You choke on your mango."
I may have avoided a few levies in Samarkand. He continues twisting a ring nervously, but I swear they were unreasonable taxes. You've seen the price of star anise lately. You consider asking what exactly he wants from you. He answers before you do. Protection. Just for a few days you seem trustworthy. You have that face. You glance at your reflection in your canteen. Dusty, sunburned, sleep-deprived, trustworthy. "Well," he says brightly, "you've said nothing about stealing my spices. That's something, and so you become the cinnamon trader's unofficial shadow." As the caravan trudges forward, the terrain shifts again. Sand gives way to gritty gravel. Tufts of brittle grass appear like confused eyebrows. In the distance, a ruined watchtower leans like it's tired of standing guard. A few vultures circle above their shadows, gliding over the dunes. You try not to read into it. Near dusk, the group pauses for water at a shallow well choked with algae.
Darius insists on filtering his drink through what appears to be a silk handkerchief embroidered with peacock. "You never know," he says, gesturing to the well. "Once I found a fish in one, alive, quoting poetry in Greek. You can't tell if he's joking." While refilling your water skin, you notice something odd. The footprints near the well don't match your group's. Lighter, smaller, barefoot, leading up to the edge but not away. You mention it to Darius. He glances at the well, then mutters, "Could be a..." You blink, "Yahoo!" But he just wipes his boots, yes again, and changes the subject. As night falls once more, you help Darius set up his bedroll, away from the others. Not paranoid, he says, just allergic to snores. He keeps one hand on his spice pouch as he sleeps, murmuring in a language you don't recognize. You hear the words cardamom, flamingos, and possibly tax audit. You stay up late, sitting on a dune with your back to the wind. The moon is full again, the stars steady and indifferent. Something shifts in the silence, not danger exactly, but presence. And just as you begin to drift off, half sunk into your cloak, Darius snores loudly. You wonder if maybe he is afraid of scorpions after all. You wake to chaos, not the dramatic screaming sort. No, this is a quieter disaster. Worse, somehow. The kind where no one's yelling because they're all too busy glaring. It starts with Farid, the caravan leader, holding up a small bundle of torn linen like it's a dead rat. He squints at it, then at the saffron merchant, then at the cinnamon trader, and finally, just for good measure, at you. "What exactly," Farid asks, voice thin and dangerous, "happened to my saffron?" You blink the sleep from your eyes, stretching until your spine sounds like someone stepping on dry reeds. I don't know, you say. I guard cinnamon now. Saffron's outside my jurisdiction. It's not a lie. Darius already impeccably groomed for the morning sip, something that smells suspiciously expensive, and says, I merely watched, of course. Though I will say the negotiations were heated. As the camp stirs, the story slowly unwinds. Last night, under moonlight and mild boredom, the caravan spice traders decided to barter. Saffron was the prize, its weight in gold, its scent sharp and almost arrogant. The merchant offering it, a man named Navid, had carefully measured 3 silk-wrapped satchels. In return, he sought a rare cinnamon bark, a few pouches of Kashmiri chili powder, and something called phoenix powder, which may have just been crushed flowers with branding. But somewhere between the bartering and the actual trade, things got strange. Someone says one satchel burst open. Someone else claims a camel ate it. Another swears that Darius tried to pass off powdered root as cinnamon, and that's when fists almost flew. You're not sure what happened. You do remember someone yelling, "This isn't paprika, it's powdered beet." Historians still argue whether ancient Silk Road traders used standardized weights or relied purely on trust and skill. Based on today's evidence, the answer is neither. What you do know is that now Navid is missing one satchel of saffron, and everyone suspects everyone. You eye Darius. His boots gleam suspiciously, yellowish. Farid paces the sand, muttering about Fine's dishonor and that time in Nishapur with the goose feathers. He turns on you. You're guarding Darius? Did you see anything? You shake your head slowly. He spent most of the night polishing his flutes and whispering to his spice jars. Nothing unusual. Farid pinches the bridge of his nose and sighs so deeply you expect sand to whistle out of his ears. Just keep your eyes open. The morning wears on. The air heats up. Darius offers you cinnamon-infused dried pear as a peace offering. You accept because principles are nice, but free fruit is better. Around noon, the caravan stops by a cluster of boulders for shade and to resaddle the camels, who have collectively decided today is walk diagonally day. You and Darius sit cross-legged, keeping half an eye on Navid, who's still muttering about lost treasure and cheetahs with shiny boots. Darius leans toward you. Technically, he whispers, no one owns saffron. It's like music or sand. You just temporarily curate it. You respond with a grunt, mostly to avoid encouraging him. The situation finally boils over when Navid, armed with a wooden spoon, marches toward Darius's pack. I demand a search, he cries. Darius stands offended. You'll touch my saffron pouches over my dead, cinnamon-scented body. The moment feels sharp, like a snake about to strike, until PFFFT. A camel, evidently bored of the tension, lets out an impressively timed sneeze. It sprays Navid directly across the face. A second later, the spoon is gone, the argument derailed, and Darius has declared the debate decided by divine camel intervention. Even Farid laughs, and just like that, tempers deflate. The missing saffron is chalked up to loss by wind carelessness or mystical redistribution. Someone suggests a new rule: no bartering after dark, especially not with powdered anything. You help pack the camp. Darius hums a strange melody as he folds his rug suspiciously light of heart. His boots are now less yellow, perhaps just dust, perhaps not. As you walk alongside him, he turns suddenly serious. You know he says people will kill for saffron. Wars even, all over are flowers dried threads. Imagine that. You nod. People kill for raisins too. Amir almost did. He chuckles. Yes. But raisins don't taste like sunlit gold. The day wears on. You pass an old marker stone cracked and barely visible beneath centuries of grit.
It bears a carving likely Sogdian, though time has smoothed it into a half smile. You wonder how many traders stood right here just like you, worrying about spice and camels, and whether their socks matched. That night, the stars return with their usual smug brightness. The moon hangs lower than before, fat and glowing like a lantern swaying on a hook. The caravan winds into a narrow valley framed by cliffs, and you set up camp on a wide stone shelf. Darius offers you a tiny wooden cup of something he calls spiced sleep milk. You smell it. Cinnamon, definitely. Something floral too. Possibly nut-based. Possibly not. You drink it anyway. Later, as you drift near the edge of sleep, you hear him humming again. Not a troubled duck tune this time, but something softer. It floats into your dreams, curling around the fading image of a missing saffron satchel and a camel that definitely looked guilty. You sleep with one eye open, just in case.
The morning greets you with silence, a kind of heavy hush that weighs on your chest the moment you open your eyes. The usual sounds of camp camel grumbles, spoon clinks, someone cursing their pack straps are muted. Even the wind seems reluctant to move. You sit up slowly. The cliffs around your little stone camp cast long shadows like fingers reaching in to stir the pot. Most of the caravan is awake, but quieter than usual. Farid stands in the center of the group inspecting the sand. That's when you notice it. Footprints. Not yours, not your group's. These prints are smaller, barefoot, and far too numerous. They weave in and out of your camp in looping patterns, curious, almost playful. Some press deep as if someone crouched beside your bedroll in the night. Your stomach tightens. Darius notices too. He stares down one boot perched awkwardly above a print like he's worried it might suddenly bite. These weren't here last night, he murmurs, voice flat for once. I set a perimeter with cinnamon bark. That usually wards off most things thieves. Bad luck, improperly seasoned stew. You don't respond, you're too busy counting. 1 set, 2, 5, 8. How many people were walking through your sleeping camp while everyone snored? Farid's jaw is set. He gestures to the edge of the cliff where the prints seem to vanish mid-stride, as if someone walked right off into nothing. Salt spirit, someone whispers behind you. You turn. It's Lynn, the kid with the mysterious clay jar. His donkey stands patiently beside him, chewing something it absolutely shouldn't be. Lynn doesn't meet your eyes. They live in the dunes, he says. They come when you bring too much gold or talk too loud. You blink. That sounds made up. Lynn shrugs. So do camels. But there they are. Historians still argue whether belief in desert spirits was real among travelers or simply a tactic to keep people from wandering off alone. Either way, no one's laughing this morning. You bend down to inspect the prints more closely. They're not just barefoot, they're thin with oddly spaced toes, almost like someone walking on the very balls of their feet. Not quite human. Not quite right. Darius edges closer. We should move. Immediately, you nod. For once you agree. Packing happens fast. Too fast. You nearly forget your water pouch and someone loads a pan flute into a grain sack by mistake. The camels sense the shift and groan accordingly. Amir trips over his own raisins. The caravan sets off in tight formation, closer than usual. Even the musicians are silent. The sun climbs higher, painting the cliffs gold, then white, then blistering. The air smells like old stone and unease. You keep glancing behind, but the valley fades quickly, swallowed by the shifting dunes. Midday brings a narrow ridge high above the basin, where wind carves the sand into fine whispering curls. It's there you spot something, a pile of white stones arranged into a spiral. At the center sits a small, cracked bowl filled with salt. Dario sees it too. Another offering, he murmurs. Third one this week. You frown. From who he doesn't answer. The rest of the day blurs into sweat and sunburn. You walk beside Dario's again, your boots sinking into deep sand each step, a tiny betrayal to your ankles. He tries playing a lullaby to soothe the camels, but they react as if he's insulted their ancestors. Too soon, he asks. Yes, you reply, too flute. When evening falls, you're no longer near cliffs or valleys, just endless dunes, silver under moonlight. The camp sets up in a hollow wind, protected and quiet. But no one speaks of the footprints, not directly. Even the kid Lin hums nervously as he curls beside his jar. As you tend to your gear, Dario sits nearby, polishing a new set of pan flutes. They glint under the stars-carved wood, some with tiny silver inlays. One has a crescent moon etched into the side. I didn't steal the saffron, you know, he says without looking up. You glance at him. I know. Did you know, he adds, that some ancient routes ran alongside ghost trails, invisible paths the locals wouldn't walk after dark? They say the road remembers more than the travelers do. Is this a metaphor? He shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe it's a warning. You stare into the fire. Sparks swirl up like fireflies with somewhere to be. The silence thickens again, pressing in, and just when you think you might sleep, you hear it. Crunch, a soft, deliberate footstep on gravel just beyond the edge of the camp. You're on your feet, instantly dagger drawn. Darius doesn't move, but you see his hands clench around his flute. A second crunch, then a third. You motion to Farid. He nods, silent. Together you and two other guards circle out toward the sound. There, between two dunes, a shadow flits. Too fast for a person walking. Too light for a camel. You call out. Nothing, just wind. But the salt bowl spiral is now at your feet. You didn't pass it earlier. No one saw it moved. Back at camp, Lin is fast asleep. His donkey snorts softly, but the jar by his side has tipped over its lid, askew. Something glints inside fine white granules. Salt. You and Dario's exchange a long look. No one sleeps well that night. The sun arrives reluctantly, casting long, chilly shadows over the dunes, as if it too has reservations about what happened during the night. You rise, gritty-eyed, and saw your cloak stiff from cold and a touch of panic sweat. Your dagger rests under your pillow unsheathed. Nothing seems disturbed, but the feeling lingers. Dario's appears from behind a tent flap, bleary but composed, holding a steaming cup of something spiced. You smell cinnamon. You also smell nerves. Well, he says, sipping, I vote we skip breakfast and get far, far away from here. You don't argue. Even Farid is unusually quick to call for departure. Within an hour, the caravan is moving wheels, creaking camels, groaning boots, sinking into still cool sand. The group is quieter than usual, conversation dulled to mutters and throat clearing. No one mentions footprints. No one mentions the bowl of salt now sitting oddly in the back of Amir's grain cart. You all noticed it. No one moved it. No one claims it. By mid-morning, the dunes stretch into flatter terrain. Crusted salt patches appear like pale ghosts of ancient rivers. A distant glint of green promises an oasis, small but real. You arrive just after midday, water pools in a shallow basin surrounded by reeds that sway despite the still air. The reeds hiss softly, as if sharing gossip you're not invited to hear. You crouch beside the pool and drink cautiously, cool and clean, flavored faintly with minerals and mistrust. Funny thing, says Darius, appearing beside you. This place wasn't on our map. You glance around.
Others feel it too. That quiet suspicion that comes when a place looks exactly like a place shouldn't. Too pristine, too empty. Still, after the last 2 nights, no one complains. The camels drink deeply grateful and oblivious. The traders stretch their legs. You sit beneath a date palm, the fronds above rustling with dry music. For the first time in days, someone starts whistling. You relax a fraction, then you hear it, a whisper, not close, not clear, but distinctly human. Carried on the wind through the reeds, you freeze. So does Darius. Yep. You stand slowly scanning the reeds. Nothing. No movement beyond the usual sway. No footprints, no birds. Just more of that hissing sound, gentle, constant, almost rhythmic. You walk a little closer. The reeds tower taller than expected, pale green with tips like silver needles. And then you hear it again, this time unmistakable, a voice. Turn back. You draw your dagger. Darius pulls a flute.
Not exactly equal weaponry, but at least he looks committed. The whisper stops. The reeds shiver once, then still. You exchange glances. Darius's mouth tightens. I once heard about a place like this, he murmurs, where the wind remembered things. Travelers said it echoed old voices, last words, broken promises. You arch an eyebrow, and they stayed there. Why? He shrugs. Curiosity, or maybe because it had good water? You spend another hour in the oasis, long enough to refill your skins, rub your feet, and pretend the reeds aren't watching you. Lynn feeds his donkey some dried apricot, and for once the animal looks mildly pleased. A few musicians begin plucking strings again. Someone laughs. You start to hope maybe you imagined it, that it was nothing but wind and a tired brain full of too many ghost stories. Then, as you pack up to leave, one of the guards calls out, "Hey, look at this!" You join him near the edge of the oasis, where a patch of flattened reeds reveals something carved into the mud. Not letters, symbols, spirals, lines that tangle and cross. A single large eye. Darius squats beside it, running a finger gently over the marks. I've seen this before, he says, on a potsherd in Kashgar. A ritual sign, maybe protection, maybe a warning. You're about to ask which he thinks it is when the reeds behind you tremble violently. No wind, just movement. Everyone backs away. You leave in a hurry. The path after the oasis leads into rockier ground, still arid, but no longer the deep sand slog of the dunes. You pass ridges with layers like stacked silk, colored in faded pinks and dusty ochre. The air smells faintly of salt and iron. As evening approaches, Darius is unusually quiet. He's polishing his flutes again. That's not unusual. But he's also muttering to them as if expecting them to respond. You sit beside him, watching the sky, bloom orange and violet. Do you really think the oasis was haunted, you ask? He shrugs. I think the world is full of places that remember us even when we forget them. You nod. Poetic, he grins. Occupational hazard. Before you can ask what exactly his occupation is, he changes the subject. I've been thinking about the reed voices, he says. What if they're not echoes? What if they're invitations? You frown. To what he looks up at the moon now rising full and pale above the hills. That he says is the part I haven't figured out. The wind picks up slightly. You swear it carries a snatch of song. That night, sleep comes cautiously, and somewhere in your dreams you hear whispers again. Only this time, they say your name. Morning slips in grey, and moody, dragging with it the familiar scent of dust, animal sweat, and leftover paranoia. The whispers from the oasis still cling to your skin like dew, and when you roll up your bedroll, you half expect to find a reed tucked inside. You don't. Just a scorpion the size of your thumb. You nod respectfully and let it scuttle away. Dario's, as always, is already awake. He's holding a piece of flatbread in one hand and a scroll in the other, reading while chewing. Good news, he says, between bites. I've decided not to go mad today. You squint at him. Today, every day's a choice, he says cheerfully. So far, I've been lucky. The caravan sets off under overcast skies. The sun is a white disk behind the clouds and the air carries a cool bite. The landscape has changed again. Gone are the dunes and sharp ridges. Now you're surrounded by cracked flats where salt crusts the ground in glittering plates. They crunch beneath the camel's feet. The sound is oddly satisfying. As the caravan lumbers forward, a shout from the front brings everyone to a halt. You push through the crowd and find Farid kneeling beside what appears to be a set of old stone columns, half buried and battered by time. They rise in a staggered line from the salt plain, leaning like drunks at a wedding. A trail leads off from the columns marked by worn stones and twisted bits of old wood. It's not on the map, Farid mutters. Darius, now at your elbow, hums thoughtfully. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. You're about to groan at the vagueness when Lynn's donkey suddenly stops ears, twitching violently. Lynn frowns. He doesn't like this place. I rarely trust livestock, Darius says, but I trust donkeys. They have very low tolerance for nonsense. Still, the decision is made. The caravan will follow the trail just for a little while. Farid says it might lead to a more direct path, or shelter, or trade. You all hope for shelter. The trail curves through a shallow canyon of salt-blasted stone. The temperature drops slightly and your breath clouds in the air. As you walk, you begin to notice things. Scratches on the rocks. Shards of pottery. Once a bone clean white and carefully arranged between two flat stones. Eventually the trail opens into a hollow. There in the center stands what looks like a shallow spring half filled with cloudy water. Around it grow thick clusters of reeds, shorter and drier than those from the oasis, but unmistakable. They murmur in the breeze. You approach the edge of the spring and kneel. The water reflects nothing, not your face, not the sky, not the reeds, just darkness. Don't drink it, Darius says behind you, voice uncharacteristically serious. The locals call this place the Whispering Basin. They say the water listens, then answers. You stand. How? By showing you something you didn't want to know. A pause. You're about to scoff when one of the younger guards, eager and foolish, cups a hand and scoops a sip. Everyone freezes. The guard blinks, sways, and staggers back and begins laughing. But it's the kind of laugh that ends in a sob. He won't say what he saw. He won't talk for the rest of the day. The caravan moves on in silence. By dusk, you're back on open flats. the spring a fading memory behind you. The wind returns stronger now, lifting ribbons of salt dust into the air. It stings your eyes, the camels grunt and huddle closer together, more agitated than usual. You break camp early that night, setting your bedroll near a thin outcropping of stone for wind cover. Dario sits beside you, idly tooting a low note on one of his flutes. It sounds like a yawn stretched into music. "Have you ever seen salt shaped like a person?" he asks casually. You frown. "That's not how salt works. It is here." He points. You turn and see them. Just beyond the firelight, scattered across the flats, are small ridges and formations. At first they seem like lumps of rock or piles of windblown debris. But as you watch, the illusion sharpens. That one has a face. That one leans like a man with a burden. That one, dear heavens, has your nose. "Coincidence, you mutter?" "Of course," Dario says. "That's what the last guy said. Before the salt spelled his name." Don't say things like that, but it's too late. The mood has shifted again. The desert remembers you're here. That night you dream of the spring, but in the dream you're not kneeling beside it. You're inside it, and the water isn't listening. It's whispering. It tells you about choices you haven't made, yet roads you'll never take, things you'll regret doing, and worse things you'll regret not doing. You wake gasping heart, pounding a dry taste in your mouth like mineral dust. Across the camp, the guard who drank from the spring is sitting upright, staring into nothing. He hasn't blinked. You roll over and try to forget. But the salt people are still out there, watching. Morning arrives with a dull ache behind your eyes and the unpleasant sensation that the salt people may or may not be judging your dreams. The guard who drank from the whispering basin still hasn't said a word, but now he's smiling slightly, which somehow makes it worse. You pack quickly. Dario's for once doesn't make a single joke. His flutes stay bundled in cloth. His boots, normally buffed to an arrogant shine, are dusted with chalky white, as if even he's afraid of attracting the desert's attention. Farid gives the command and the caravan moves on. The terrain shifts again. The salt plains fall behind, replaced by clusters of hardy desert shrubs and the occasional palm bent double by years of wind. You start climbing a gentle rise, and by midday the scent of water, real water, not whispering ponds of existential dread, hits your nose. And then you see it. An oasis, a proper one. Wide green and miracle of miracles inhabited. A low stone-walled settlement circles the oasis, its buildings made of mud brick and beams bleached by decades of sun. Palm trees rise like shaggy sentinels around a central spring, and colourful cloths flap lazily on ropes strung between dwellings. Children run between stalls. Laughter echoes off the water. After days of eerie silence and cryptic footprints, the sound is a balm to your nerves. You dismount and stretch, nearly moaning as your spine realigns. Even your boots seem relieved. Darius lets out a long, theatrical sigh. Thank the gods. A town that isn't haunted. I mean, it could be haunted, but if so, they're at least polite ghosts. Farid arranges for the caravan to rest here for the night, and a welcoming committee soon arrives, a handful of locals bearing baskets of dates bread and a jug of something fermented that smells like overripe mangoes and regret. You sip cautiously. It's better than expected. Either that or your taste buds are broken from desert dehydration. You learn the settlement is called Bir al-Rih, Well of the Wind. It's a way station for traders heading east-west, or just looking to forget things for a while. The people are welcoming if mildly amused by your dust-caked appearance. That evening they throw a feast. Low tables are set with bowls of rice and lentils grilled fish. Where did they get fish and skewers of spiced meat so tender it practically apologizes as you bite into it? The mood is warm, the fire crackles, and the moon finally does not seem ominous. Then comes the entertainment. A goat walks into the clearing wearing a sequined harness and what appears to be a tiny red veil. Everyone claps, you're not sure whether to be concerned or delighted. Then a man steps forward, a performer with a waxed moustache and a tunic too short to be confident, and begins narrating. The goat bows, music begins, and what follows is, by all logic, a goat belly dancing performance. And she's good. The goat sways, twirls, and even executes a convincing spin on 3 hooves while balancing a shallow dish of dates on her back. The crowd erupts into cheers. Someone throws rose petals. Dario's blinks like he's rethinking every career decision he's ever made. This, he says, is art. One of the locals leans over and informs you proudly that the goat is named Majnun, and that she once performed for a Mongol general who offered her a ruby. She refused. The general's horse tripped the next day. So now the man whispers, "We do not mock the goat." You nod respectfully toward Majnun. She nods back. Later, as the celebration continues, you slip away for a walk. The moon hangs heavy above the palms, casting silvery reflections across the water. You find yourself near the edge of the oasis where reeds grow thicker and a small shrine sits half buried in the sand. Candles flicker around it. Simple things, wax, stubs, stone bowls, offerings of fruit, and oddly, a single flute. You lean closer and realize the shrine is dedicated to a forgotten wind deity name, rubbed smooth by time. Dario's appears beside you, quiet for once. "Did I ever tell you," he says, "that I used to be a musician, not a merchant? Not really. I played in a royal court once. High ceilings, marble floors, echoes for days." You glance at him. "What happened?" He shrugs. "Too many silences, too many things you weren't allowed to say. I left when I realized the only people listening were trying to steal each other's wives." You both chuckle, but it fades fast. A warm breeze stirs the shrine's offerings. One of the candles gutters and dies. Somewhere in the distance, Marnun the goat bleats softly, almost wistfully. The oasis feels different now, not sinister, not haunted, just ancient. You head back to camp. The celebration is ending. Children sleep beneath tables. The musicians play quieter songs now, melodies that sound older than language. You drift into sleep beside the fire, a full stomach and sore feet, your mind humming with goat dances, fermented mangoes, and a flute resting beside a wind god no one remembers. And in your dreams the wind hums the tune you heard in the reeds. But this time it dances. Dawn creeps in lazily, like someone tiptoeing through your tent with a plate of warm flatbread and no regard for boundaries. You wake to the smell of cardamom and frying oil. Someone nearby is boiling tea over an open flame, the spiced scent curling through the morning air like a promise. You sit up and rub the sleep from your face, half expecting to see Mainan the goat practicing pirouettes. No goat. Just Dario's cross-legged, balancing a teacup on his knee, looking entirely too smug for this hour. "Good morning, guardian of cinnamon and questionable dreams," he says, gesturing to a second cup. "Drink." You snored like a man haunted by tap-dancing livestock. You accept the tea with a grunt. It's sweet, strong, and nearly scalds your tongue. You love it instantly. The camp is already busy. Traders repack their wares, children chase each other through dust plumes, and the guards stretch stiff limbs in the golden light. Farid paces like a man being followed by deadlines. You wonder if he dreams about ledgers, or being licked awake by camels. Just as you're considering whether you can sneak another piece of bread, a new figure approaches the camp. He wears simple robes the color of old parchment and walks barefoot though the ground is rough. His steps are slow, deliberate, as if he's counting something only he can see. He carries nothing but a staff carved with small winding symbols. Monk, someone whispers. A Buddhist pilgrim. He bows as he enters the circle of the caravan. Not deeply, not urgently, just enough to be polite. His face is creased with travel wind, and what you guess is a lifetime of quietly not minding strange company. Farid greets him with the respect due to someone who looks like they know a great deal and would never admit it. The monk smiles gently and with a voice like dried leaves says, "I've walked from Nalanda. I follow the stars, though they change their mind often." You and Darius exchange glances. He's invited to share tea and shade. He accepts settling on a rolled rug near the fire. Someone offers him rice and lentils. He bows again and eats slowly, gratefully, as if each bite is part of a ceremony. After the meal, as the camp lounges in lazy morning stillness, the monk begins to speak, not loudly, not like a storyteller, but as if you've all happened to overhear his thoughts. There is a monastery, he says softly, hidden in the cliffs between Dunhuang and the edge of the mountains. It does not appear on maps. It listens more than it speaks. Its monks chant at night not to the gods but to the stars. You shift, slightly intrigued. They say the stars are old minds. Not gods, not spirits, but memories. The chants help them remember who they were, or what we once asked of them. Darius whispers to you, stars, with bad memory. That explains a lot about my love life. You suppress a laugh, though the image of Darius writing break-up poetry to a star is dangerously vivid. The monk continues unbothered. Each year, fewer travelers find the monastery. Some walk right past it. Some see it only in dreams. The chants, they say, are not meant to be heard by the living, but sometimes the living hear them anyway. He doesn't look at you when he says it, but you feel the words settle heavily in your chest. You want to ask if he's ever heard the chants, if he's been there, but the way he sips his tea suggests those are questions better left as mysteries. Historians still argue whether the so-called star-chanting monasteries were real metaphorical or just poetic exaggerations passed down by tired traders desperate for celestial approval. But the old pilgrim talks like someone who's stood beneath such chants and maybe even joined in. Later you find him alone at the edge of the oasis, gazing up at the pale daylight moon. You approach quietly. Why do you follow the stars, you ask? He doesn't look away. Because they are older than any road, and some roads only appear when you look up. He holds out a small smooth stone. In its center is a carved spiral, shallow and faint. This is for you. Place it under your tongue if you are ever lost, but only at night, only when the sky forgets you. You hesitate, then take the stone. It's cool, surprisingly heavy. You're not entirely sure if he's serious or joking or gently out of his mind. He smiles faintly. It won't help with taxes or heartbreak, but it might help you remember which direction your soul leans. Later that afternoon, the monk departs. No fanfare, No ceremony, just a quiet farewell, and then he walks into the sun-blasted horizon like someone who knows the exact number of steps to take before turning invisible. You find Darius sitting on a rug, whittling a new flute. "Let me guess," he says without looking up. "The monk gave you something cryptic and vaguely magical." You show him the spiral stone. He nods. "Yep, that's the official pilgrimage starter pack." That night, beneath a sky thick with stars, you hold the stone gently in your hand. You don't place it under your tongue, but you do whisper something to it, just in case it's listening. And far above, one star seems to flicker a little more thoughtfully. The next morning begins with a thud, not a metaphorical one, a literal, audible thud, followed by a string of curses in multiple dialects and the unmistakable sound of flapping silk. You emerge from your tent half-dressed and wholly confused to find a merchant flat on his back, tangled in scrolls, dozens of them, some cracked with age, some wrapped in brocade, all in various states of scholarly panic. Dario, sipping tea nearby, raises an eyebrow. Either we've been raided by librarians or this man's bedtime reading got wildly out of hand. The fallen merchant groans. "My scroll." He's a round man with ink-stained fingers and a beard so meticulously curled it must have taken a full-time assistant. His name is Avestan, and he claims loudly to be a broker of knowledge traveling west from Chang'an. "Scrolls," he mutters as he tries to gather the papers. "Writings from Han scholars, Buddhist sutras, local folklore. I had them organized by language and mood. Now they're completely out of order." You crouch to help him. One scroll slips loose and unrolls by your foot. It's beautifully illustrated, though the subject appears to be a recipe for curing hiccups using pickled radish and goat sweat. You raise an eyebrow. Avestan shrugs. "That one's from the Fringe collection." As you help restack the scrolls, something catches your eye, a flash of silver stitching on cloth. One of the scrolls isn't paper at all. It's sewn into the hem of a folded silk robe, rolled tightly and hidden beneath layers of decoy texts. You glance up. Avestan notices your pause and quickly snatches it away. Old robe, sentimental, nothing of interest. Dario sidles up, clearly intrigued. It's not every day someone sews sentiment into silk and hides it beneath a treatise on fish migration. Avestan stiffens. Not all knowledge is meant for wide eyes. You let it drop for now, but the robe lingers in your thoughts. That afternoon, Avestan joins the caravan, insisting his camels be loaded with extreme care. He rides awkwardly, as though seated atop a tower of very sensitive lies. The terrain is turning again, less desert, more wind-carved valleys where jagged ridges rise like fossilized waves. You pass the occasional waymarker stones carved with scripts now illegible, lost to time and erosion. Every now and then you think you see something glinting from a cliffside, an old bowl, a shard of glass, the suggestion of a face. But blink and it's gone. During a rest break, Avestan warms up, partly because Darius offers him dried mango dipped in cinnamon, and partly because you ask about his fringe collection. That's all it takes. He launches into a breathless explanation of the hidden knowledge he's amassed. Unapproved sutras, half-true, imperial edicts, forgotten poetry, smuggled love letters from minor concubines, all carried not for money, but for insurance. If you hold what the powerful want erased, he says, patting one scroll, then you become inconvenient to kill. Historians still argue, Darius murmurs, whether that's cunning or a very niche form of optimism. That night, camp settles in the crook of a canyon, tucked against sandstone walls where wind moans like a half-remembered song. You find Avestan seated by the fire, carefully brushing a scroll with a tiny fan. He waves you over. "Do you read hand script?" he asks. You shake your head. "Pity," he says, and opens the robe scroll. You try not to gape. The ink is faded but intact, the characters brushed in long flowing lines that seem to dance even now. In the margins, drawings of bird stars and what looks like a man holding a burning bowl. "It's a banned parable," Avestan whispers. "They say it contains instructions for walking between dreams." You blink. That's not physically possible. Yet he replies, folding the robe with care. "It is written by a man who claimed to have lived 3 lives. One as a scholar, one as a shadow, and one as a wind." You wait for a wink, a chuckle, some sign he's being dramatic. But Avestan simply places the scroll back beneath his cushion, as reverent as if he were tucking in a child. Darius appears yawning dramatically. Is this the part where someone gets possessed by knowledge? "Only if they sleep on the wrong proverb," Avestan says mildly. Later, as you doze beside the fire, a breeze kicks up stronger than expected. The wind whips through camp, lifting small scrolls into the air like startled birds. You watch as one floats toward the sky, caught in the moonlight. It doesn't fall, just drifts upward until it's gone. The next morning, no one mentions it, not even Avestan, but you do notice the hem of his robe looks heavier. And when you pass Darius, he hums a tune that feels oddly like a lullaby meant to be sung by the stars. That night, the cold comes suddenly. Not the usual desert chill that sneaks into your cloak like a playful breeze. This one arrives with intent, sharp and immediate, like someone opened a hidden door to the far north. You wake mid-watch, rubbing warmth back into your fingers, breath fogging under the moon. It's your turn to patrol the perimeter. Darius snores softly beneath a woolen blanket, clutching one of his flutes like it owes him rent. The rest of the caravan sleeps in loose clusters, their shapes barely visible under thick coverings. Even the camels seem subdued, curled into lumpy piles, their occasional grunts muffled by the cold. You pace slowly, boots crunching over gravel and brittle grass. Your dagger is tucked into your belt, mostly for comfort. You don't expect trouble, just strange weather, maybe a wandering fox, or, given your luck lately, a disoriented philosopher in need of directions. As you reach the far end of camp, you pause on a small rise and look up. Then you see it. Green light. A wavering curtain of it shimmering just above the horizon, pulsing faintly like breath. It stretches across the sky in long liquid ribbons, twisting and curling with invisible grace. You blink, and then you realize you're hundreds of miles from any place known for auroras. This shouldn't be possible, but there it is. You turn, expecting to see others reacting, but the camp is silent. Everyone's still asleep. No gasps, no pointing fingers, just you and the quiet flicker of impossible light. You should be unnerved, instead you're oddly calm. The light moves gently like it's dancing for no one in particular. You sit on the rise, pulling your cloak tighter, watching it flow. Footsteps crunch beside you. You glance over to find Avestan approaching, robe, wrapped tight scroll bag slung across his shoulder. He doesn't speak immediately, just watches the light with that same patient, unblinking gaze he gives to old ink. Finally, he says once a hand traveler claimed to see dragons in the sky while crossing the Pamirs. said they dance like silk in water. Historians dismissed it as poetry. You murmur, "This doesn't look like dragons." No, he agrees. "It looks like memory." You both watch in silence. After a moment, he removes something from his sleeve, a small scroll barely longer than your hand. He opens it with care, exposing a narrow strip of dark ink brushed onto aged rice paper. At first it looks like nonsense, just dots and loops. Then you realize it's a star map, but not of the usual constellations. This one is abstract, circular, moving outward like ripples from a stone. At the center is a symbol that looks unsettlingly like the spiral carved into the monk's stone. Avstan doesn't explain it. He just holds it up toward the light, as if asking the aurora to read it back to him. Somewhere behind you, a camel snorts. A soft wind brushes your cheek. And for a moment you feel something strange, not fear, not awe, just familiarity. Like remembering a dream you haven't had yet. Darius arrives then, blanket over his shoulders, flute in hand. "I was asleep," he says, sitting beside you, "but then I felt a hum in my teeth. Figured it was either ghosts or sky weirdness." He squints upward. Definitely sky weirdness. You all watch for a while, the three of you sitting in a row, like kids waiting for a parade no one else knows about. Darius plays a low note on the flute, soft, careful, reverent. The aurora flickers, and for a split second the light responds a subtle twitch, a shift in rhythm. Nothing definitive, just enough to feel like acknowledgement. Later you all return to your bedrolls, the sky still glowing faintly. You sleep deeply and your dreams are strange, filled with green rivers, whispered directions, and a road made of stars. In the morning, the sky is normal again. No trace of the lights. No evidence it happened. Avstan is already awake, brushing sand off his scrolls. Darius stretches and groans theatrically, then sniffs the air. Smells like mystery. Or burnt rice. Farid says nothing. Either he slept through it, or refuses to believe it. As the caravan resumes its journey, you catch Lin. Yes, the boy with the mysterious jar, standing alone, staring at the sky with narrowed eyes. "What are you looking for?" you ask. He shrugs. "Just checking if it remembers us." You walk beside Darius for a while. He hums the same tune from the night before. "You think it really heard us?" you ask. He nods solemn for once. Everything hears. The sky, the road, even the camels. They're just better at keeping secrets. You laugh. But later, as the wind picks up and the landscape shifts into jagged hills, you glance back just once, and for the briefest moment you see a green shimmer dance behind the clouds, like the sky is waving goodbye. It begins with payment. Not yours, you still get paid in practical things, dried apricots, warm gossip, the occasional compliment that may or may not be sarcastic. But this morning, Farid passes around the monthly guard wages tucked carefully in a satchel stitched with camel motifs and at least one accidental snail. You count your coins without much interest until your thumb brushes one that's odd. It's heavier than the rest. Smooth, warm, you hold it up. The face on the coin is unfamiliar, neither Persian nor Han nor Roman. The script around the edge curves in loops you can't read. And strangest of all, it feels like it shouldn't be warm. It's early morning. Everything else is cold. Darius leans over, chewing a fig. "Ah, one of the mystery coins." You blink. "Accuse me?" He shrugs. "They show up sometimes. No one knows where from. They're not forgeries too well made, but the languages don't match any known kingdom. People say they come from caravans that never return." You flip the coin in your palm. It hums slightly, just enough to make your fingers itch. You show it to Farid. He frowns, then takes another from the pouch, then another. 4 in total, all the same design, all slightly warm. He mutters something under his breath that sounds like a curse and a prayer rolled into one. Then he tucks them back into the satchel and says nothing more. Later you find Avestan at rest under a scraggly tree organizing scrolls into what you think are weather-safe and spirit-friendly categories. You ask him about the coins. He raises an eyebrow. I've seen those before. Traders call them moon coins. Because they glow, no, because no one ever remembers how they got them. He reaches into his pack and pulls out a tiny case. Inside, wrapped in wax cloth, is a 5th coin. Same strange face, same warmth. I keep it for luck, he says, or as proof that the road isn't quite what we think. You ask if anyone's tried melting them down. Sure, he says. And then strange dreams. One man said he dreamed in a language he didn't know, woke up. Speaking it, wrote it down, then forgot it all by sunrise. You glance at your coin again. It doesn't look menacing, just misplaced. Like something from a story you once heard and never finished. That night, around the fire, Lin the boy pulls out his clay jar and sets it carefully in the sand. The lid is off. The jar hums slightly. You're not sure whether to be alarmed or deeply impressed. He holds up one of the strange coins. Where'd you get that, you ask? He shrugs. It was in the jar. Darius groans into his tea. Of course it was. Lin places the coin inside. There's a faint clink, then a pause. And then the jar sings. Not loud, not even musical, but a soft series of notes rising and falling like breath. Everyone around the fire falls still. The sound lasts exactly 12 seconds. Then it stops. Lin replaces the lid. No one speaks for a while. Even the fire pops carefully like it's afraid to interrupt. Eventually, Darius clears his throat. Right well. Who wants fig bread and an identity crisis? You spend the rest of the evening with the coin in your palm, flipping it over and over, tracing the face with your thumb. It feels less warm now, or maybe you've gotten used to it. In your dreams, you walk through a city made of black stone under a sky that hangs too close. People speak in loops, not words. Their faces are blurred, but their coins are clear, identical to yours. They hand you one. You accept. When you wake, the coin is still in your hand. You don't remember falling asleep with it there. Later that morning, the caravan passes a crumbled milestone, its lettering almost erased. You pause to look closer and notice something scratched into the side, fresh like it was added yesterday. 3 loops, a spiral, and the unmistakable face of the moon coin. Darius sees it too. He doesn't joke this time. He just whistles a slow, low note on his flute, and far ahead, in the shimmering distance, a flicker of green light curls across the sky and fades. You're not sure when you first notice the singing. It starts as a hum, low melodic, threading through the wind like a needle through silk. You think at first it's Darius improvising another of his dubious lullabies, but when you glance his way, he's asleep, one hand flopped over his pack, snoring in iambic pentameter. You scan the caravan. Most are dozing, eating, or arguing about whether pickled turnips count as breakfast. No one's singing. But the melody continues. Faint, lilting, not close, not far, just around. You rise slowly and follow the sound, stepping past sleeping camels and piles of rolled rugs. The trail leads you toward the outer edge of the camp, near the old well dry abandoned, mostly a home for stubborn lizards and rumours. And there she is. A woman in a deep blue robe embroidered with pale stars. Her veil is translucent, shimmering faintly in the early light. She stands by the well, one hand resting lightly on the stone rim, the other lifted as if she's letting her fingers dance on invisible strings. She's singing in a language you don't recognize. Its syllables are soft-shaped like sighs, the kind of sound you'd expect to find etched on the edge of a dream. You freeze, unsure if you're intruding or hallucinating. She doesn't look at you, but she must know you're there. The melody ends on a long curling note that wraps itself around your spine and settles behind your heart like it's always belonged there. You blink. She's gone. No rustle of cloth, no departing footsteps, just gone. You rush to the well. The sand around it is undisturbed. The stone is warm as if recently touched. You lean over the rim, peering down. Darkness, no water, no echoes, but carved into the inner wall, just barely visible, is a symbol. 3 loops, a spiral. You step back, heart ticking faster than it should. A voice behind you, she comes before turning points. You spin around. Avestan, of course. He stands with his arms, folded scroll bag slung across his shoulder like a scholar's answer to a sword. Who is she, you ask? He shakes his head. No one agrees. Some say she's a guardian, others a warning. The Sogdians called her Sarida al-Lail, the Lady of Night, said she was born from the first star's breath. And what does she do? She appears, Avestan says, and then something happens. Comforting. You tell Farid. He nods the way someone does when their brain is filing things under too weird to deal with before breakfast. Darius, once awake, insists on checking the well for musical enchantment residue. You find him an hour later, dangling upside down over the edge, flute in hand, whistling softly into the shaft. She could be trapped, he says, or dramatic. Hard to tell with veiled mystics. The caravan moves on shortly after, but something in the group has shifted. You feel it in the way people speak, slightly softer, slightly more aware of their surroundings. Lynn watches the sky more often. Amir, the raisin enthusiast, has gone quiet. Even the camels seem to step more carefully. The land grows rockier again. Short, thorny shrubs and patches of dry grass cling to life in the dust. You pass old ruins, a collapsed tower with sun-whitened bricks, a broken archway carved with faded lotus flowers, a wall where travelers have etched messages in at least 7 languages. One of the walls bears a crude, drawing a woman in a star-covered robe, standing beside a well. She's not smiling. That night, camp settles under the overhang of a stony ridge. The wind whistles high above, bouncing notes off the rocks. Darius insists the melody sounds familiar. It's in a minor key, he says, which means mystery, sadness, or taxes. You sleep lightly, and sometime before dawn, you dream. You're standing by the well again. The woman is there. She doesn't speak, but she looks at you. Her eyes are hidden, but you feel the weight of her gaze. She lifts one hand palm up, fingers outstretched. In her palm, a single moon coin glows softly. Then she closes her hand, and everything around you begins to dissolve camp sky memory until only her voice remains. One word, not spoken, sung, your name. You jolt awake just before sunrise. Sweat chills your back. The fire's down to coals and the camp is quiet. You glance at your coin pouch. It's open. 1 coin is missing. You don't say anything about the missing coin. Not right away. You check your pouch again, then again. You dump it out just to be sure. 9 coins clatter to the sand. You started with 10. You're absolutely certain. You counted them last night, tracing the strange looped lettering on the moon coin before drifting off. Now it's gone, but that's not what unsettles you. It's the fact that everything else is untouched. Your dagger still lies beside your bedroll, your cloak boots water pouch undisturbed, no signs of intrusion, no footprints, nothing, except the coin, gone. You glance around camp. Avestan is already up, of course. He's spreading scrolls out like a priest, laying relics across an altar. Darius is buried under his blanket like a particularly decorative corpse, one bare foot sticking out with a silk tassel tied to his toe. Someone's prank, probably. You catch Farid near the camels, inspecting their legs with the grim dedication of a man convinced one of them has a limp. That's purely emotional. You consider telling him about the coin, the dream, the woman in blue. But what would you say? Hey, good morning. One of my possibly cursed mystery coins disappeared after a ghost sang my name in my sleep. Nope. Instead, you do what you've always done, file it away.
A notch in the growing list of things that make no sense and yet feel completely inevitable. Because something else is coming today. You feel it before Farid announces it, an itch under your skin like the land itself is pulling in 2 directions. At midday, the caravan reaches a crossroads, not a metaphorical one. An actual split in the path marked by an old stone sign half swallowed by the earth and worn down by wind. One arrow points west toward Merv, the other curves east toward Dunhuang. Farid calls a halt. He stands before the sign, hands behind his back, squinting like it owes him an apology. The path to Merv is shorter, he says, more trade opportunities, more risk. He turns east. Dunhuang is slower, but safer. Arguments break out immediately. The merchants shout over one another, some waving scrolls, some pointing at camels, one dramatically clutching a bag of dates as if it contains the future.
Guards start doing what guards always do in times of uncertain leadership, sharpening weapons that don't need sharpening and avoiding eye contact. Darius, of course, makes it weird. I go where the road sings, he declares, already tossing coins to a stunned-looking camel as if asking its opinion. Avestan is calm, unsurprisingly. I will follow the east. Knowledge flows that way. Farid sighs. We divide. 10 of us will take the west road with the bulk of trade goods, the rest toward Dunhuang. You're given the choice, and somehow you already know the answer. It's not logic, not duty, just something in your chest whispering the way the woman in blue did, without sound, but impossible to ignore. You choose Dunhuang. So do Darius, Avestan, Lin, a handful of guards, and 2 quiet sisters from Samarkand who've spoken maybe 5 words since the trip began, but can dismantle and repack a tent faster than you can blink. The group splits quietly. No ceremony. Just handshakes, nods a few last trades. Farid leaves you with a brief salute, then leads the larger caravan west. You watch them disappear into the dust, feeling the separation like a pulled thread. Then you turn east. The new road is narrower, less worn, more overgrown. It winds between low hills that shimmer in the heat. You travel slower now, the group smaller, lighter. The silence between you is not uncomfortable. It's the silence of people walking towards something they can't name yet. That night, you camp by a dry riverbed. No fire, a mutual decision. Everyone seems to feel it, the shift in mood, the hush in the wind. Even the camels settle quicker. No drama, no protest. Lin hums quietly while feeding his donkey. Darius wraps himself in a blanket back to the group flute, silent for once. You lie awake, eyes tracing the curve of the moon. Still no coin, still no dream, but when you close your eyes, you hear a voice, faint and far. Not a song this time. A whisper, not your name, just one word. Soon! Morning brings a wind that stings. It bites into your cheeks as you break camp, tugging at tent flaps, flipping loose scarves, making even the camels blink like hungover philosophers. The air tastes different, drier, sharper. There's something briny on the breeze, as though it's been dragged through ancient places too tired to remember their names. Darius ties a scarf around his head and mutters something about ominous foreshadowing weather. Avestan simply tucks his scroll satchel deeper beneath his robe and whispers to it as if the scrolls might catch cold. The wind worsens by midday. At first it's just annoying, sand in your boots, hair in your eyes, but by the time the sun reaches its peak, the world has begun to vanish. The sky blurs, the horizon disappears. You squint, but the road, if it can still be called, that is now just packed, earth lost beneath swirling grit. Farid would have pushed forward, but Farid's not here. You and the smaller party huddle close, linking camels and keeping the children between the larger beasts. Lin wraps his arms around his jar like it's his only anchor. Dario shouts something about his flutes, whether in despair or defiance, you're not sure. The storm fully arrives a few moments later. It's not violent in the way you expect. It doesn't roar or scream. It hums low and steady, like someone exhaling through clenched teeth. Sand curls up from the ground in spirals, whipping around your legs, your neck, your face. You pull your scarf higher, blinking against the sting. Visibility drops to mere feet. Someone near you stumbles, a camel wails. You grab a rope, blindly tug, and feel it go taut, your lifeline, now nothing but frayed cord in a world turned beige and soundless. Then something shifts. It's hard to explain. The air cools just slightly, the wind falters, and beneath your boots the ground crunches. Not sand, not dirt, salt. You look down. A thin crust of pale crystals stretches beneath you, half exposed by the wind. It cracks as you walk, revealing shimmering ridges like fish scales. The storm's force drops another notch, and then you see them. Figures, dozens, maybe more, half buried in the crusted salt, stretched like sculptures across the landscape. Not statues, not quite. They're too detailed, fingers curled mid-gesture, faces twisted in surprise or awe or grief, robes frozen in imagined motion. You stagger closer, squinting through the sand-laced wind. One of the figures, barely visible beneath the coating of salt, looks like he was mid-step. Head tilted, a hand outstretched. You recognize him. One of the traders from a caravan that passed you weeks ago. A man with a red sash and a laugh like a goat. He's not laughing now. Historians still argue whether the salt field of the vanished was a myth, a warning, or simply exaggerated folklore. Travelers spoke of a sudden wind, a path made of white, and people who vanished without a trace turned into echoes by something older than time. You never expected to walk into it. The others gather around, wide-eyed, quiet. Even Darius is stunned into silence. Did they get caught in a storm like us? Lin whispers. Avestan crouches beside one of the forms, brushing salt from his face. No, he murmurs. Look at their eyes. You do. Open, unblinking, wide, not with fear, but recognition. They saw something, he says. The wind shifts again. This time, a gust stronger than before cuts across the flat, sending sand into your teeth. You all retreat, pressing cloth to your faces, moving quickly along the salt crust until the storm fades just enough to think again. You make camp beneath a stone outcrop, shaped like a giant's cracked tooth. There's no wood for fire, just a shared blanket of silence. Lynn falls asleep, curled beside his jar, which hums once before going still.
Avestan rewrites something in his notebook with a shaking hand, and Darius finally speaks. This is the road that forgets, he says. Not the people, not the stories, the road. It forgets it took you. It keeps moving forward like you were never there. You lie down, pressing your shoulder to the cool stone, listening to the hush of night wind skimming over salt. In the dark, you whisper to yourself, a name, a place, something simple to prove you're still real. But the wind doesn't answer. It never does. The storm finally breaks by dawn. When you wake, the air is heavy and still, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring from the absence of noise. The wind has stopped, not paused, not softened, just vanished. Like it packed up and went elsewhere to harass someone more interesting. You rise slowly, brushing a fine layer of salt crust from your cloak. All around the camp is whitewashed.
Even the camels look pale, with it blinking miserably, as if asking what sin they committed in a past life to deserve such treatment. Darius groans from beneath a makeshift tarp. I dreamed I was a raisin, a sun-dried one. Lynn's donkey sneezes loudly in agreement. You all take stock. Nothing lost, no one gone. That's something. The salt field, however, is now half buried again, dusted with fresh grit. The frozen figures remain softer, now fading beneath a new layer. Already they seem less real, less threatening, just another strange landmark on a road that forgets. The party is quiet as it moves out. No one jokes, no one sings. Even Darius has his flute tucked away, too solemn to play a tune. The terrain shifts once again, slowly at first. Hills rise to the east, their ridges lined with low, dry scrub. Ahead lies a narrow pass, flanked by pale stone ridges. The path narrows, hemmed in by rock. You press forward, boots crunching on gravel. Then out of nowhere, Darius yelps. You spin around, dagger half drawn. He's hunched over, grinning wide, holding what looks like a thick bolt of silk. Found it tucked into the rock, he says, brushing dust from its surface. Just sitting there. You raise a skeptical eyebrow. Just like that, he shrugs. This road gives gifts. Avestan peers over, adjusting his glasses. It's no ordinary silk. You agree. The fabric glimmers, strangely catching the light even in shadow. It's wrapped tightly, a small scroll stitched into its fold. Darius unfurls it carefully, and what you see makes your blood prick. It's not a map. Not exactly. But it is a diagram. Human figures drawn with fine strokes, each one pierced by small arrows, some of which are bouncing off the robes they wear. There are notes beside the sketches, tiny cramped characters not written in any script you recognize. Darius whistles. Is this what I think it is? You nod slowly. Silk armor. Historians agree that some Silk Road travelers and even warriors wore multiple layers of tightly woven silk beneath their garments. It wasn't to stop arrows entirely, but the dense fabric could slow them down, catch the shaft and reduce the damage. In some cases, the silk could be unraveled to pull the arrow from a wound more cleanly. But this looks like an experiment. You think it's real? Lynn asks, peering at the scroll. There's only one way to find out. You take the bolt and wrap it tightly under your cloak. It feels smooth, warm, not metallic, like chainmail, but layered and snug, flexible. You can still move. You sure this is wise? Avestan mutters. No, you say. But that's never stopped me. You carry on through the pass. Not long after you hear the first whistle of movement, you duck instinctively and something thunks into the rock beside your head. Arrow. Your instincts kick in. You shout, roll behind a boulder, draw your dagger. The others scramble Lynn, and the donkey dive behind a cart. Avestan flattens himself against a rock, and Darius does something that's either tactical or interpretive dance. Figures appear on the ridge above, 3 of them, faces covered, bows in hand. Bandits. You raise your voice. We have nothing worth dying for. One of the bandits fires again. This one hits you right in the chest. You stagger backward, breath caught in your throat, then realize you're not bleeding. The silk beneath your cloak has stopped the arrow. Sort of. It didn't bounce off dramatically. It's lodged in the silk halfway through the shaft, trembling slightly. You pull it free. The silk puckers. The fabric's damaged, but your skin barely scratched. Everyone stares. Darius blinks. Well, add arrow sponge to your resume. You hear Avestan mutter, historians are going to hate this.
A few well-aimed slingshot rocks from Lynn and an extremely loud flute screech from Darius convince the attackers to retreat. The bandits vanish over the ridge without a word. Your group breathes again. You peel off the silk slowly. The spot where the arrow struck is bruised but intact. You're alive. You're a walking myth now, Darius says, grinning. The man who deflected arrows with ancient fabric. Don't tell Farid, you mutter. He'll try to tax it. That night you all huddle around a tiny fire in the shelter of a boulder. The mood has lightened, nervous laughter, shared food, even a few notes from Darius's flute that don't sound like dying poultry. You glance at the silk now folded beside your bedroll. It saved your life, or at least delayed your death. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet thought unfurls. Maybe this road isn't just about trade and survival. Maybe it's about transformation. Or maybe, as Darius mutters while roasting lentils, it's just really invested in drama. Either way, you're still walking it. And it's not done with you yet. The salt is gone by morning traded for gravel dust, and the silence of things too old to speak. The narrow pass widens into a cracked plateau, a place where the land feels paused, mid-thought, flattened by time, scrubbed clean by wind. Your boots crunch over a brittle crust of yellow-grey stone, dotted with dry lichens and occasional sun-bleached bones that may or may not have once belonged to camels. The silk armor lies folded neatly in your pack, heavier with meaning now. You can still feel the ghost of that arrow, the way it struck and held, the way it didn't kill you. Today there's something new in the air. Darius is the first to notice. I smell bone ink, he announces, sniffing like a bloodhound with flair. Someone's burning yak marrow nearby. You only do that if you're preserving memory, or summoning ancestors,
Or both. You stare at him. Avestan, to your surprise, nods in agreement. Yak bone ink was a funerary script medium in parts of the western steppes, carvings filled with soot and marrow paste. The words were said to be breath-holding. Not quite alive, not quite dead. So naturally, Darius says, let's go find whoever is playing with that. Lynn, riding slightly ahead, calls out. You follow him to a ridge overlooking a shallow basin where the earth dips like the palm of a cupped hand. At its center sits a squat stone building, weathered but intact, a cracked dome, soot-streaked chimney, and doorless frame. Smoke rises from a pit outside, thick and bitter. A man kneels by the fire, thin, wrapped in layered rags and furs. His hands are black with ash, and he moves with a slow, deliberate rhythm, rubbing a long strip of polished yak bone with a bundle of reeds soaked in dark paste. He doesn't look up. You approach cautiously. "Peace, you say?" He grunts. "There is none." "Sit anyway." "Charming. You do?" Dario sits too uninvited and immediately starts inspecting the tools scattered near the pit. A knife made of obsidian, a set of tiny bone chisels, ink pots carved from horn. The man finally speaks again. "My name is Kezhin, and this was my father's kiln, and his father's before that. We carve the breath into bone, stories not meant to burn." You glance at the bone in his lap. It's covered in fine lines, spirals, sigils, looping glyphs that seem to shift subtly when you blink too long. "What kind of story is it?" you ask. He lifts the bone gently. "One of a traveler who lost his name to the desert. He carved it into bone so it would outlive his voice. He offers it to you. It's heavier than it should be." You trace your fingers over the markings. They're warm. The bone hums faintly beneath your fingertips like a held breath. You hand it back. "I dreamt of a man like that," you say, surprising yourself. Kezhin nods, as if he expected you to. "Some stories are older than dreams," he says. "They wait in the dust. They climb into your bones when you're not looking." Avestan steps forward, reverent. "Would you sell it?" "No," Kezhin says simply, "but I will give it." He hands the bone to you again. This time he does not take it back. "For the road," he says. "You'll know when to leave it behind." You wrap the bone in cloth and slide it into your pack between a worn map and a pouch of sweet almonds you've been hoarding. The rest of the day passes in silence. Even Dario seems reflective. He doesn't play his flute. He doesn't hum. He just walks beside you, eyes narrowed at the horizon, as if trying to remember a tune he never learned. At sunset, you make camp in a dried riverbed filled with smooth stones and whispering wind. You sit apart from the others, turning the yak bone slowly in your hands. What story does it hold? What name? And will you know when it's yours? That night, you dream again. You are walking on a path of bone. Each step echoes, and the echoes speak. They don't say your name. They say all the names you've ever almost been. And at the end of the path is a woman in blue, veiled and silent. She does not speak, but she holds up a single bone. It is blank, for now. You wake with the taste of smoke in your mouth and the feeling that something inside you has been written on. The next day begins with a debate, not about whether to move on that's settled. The road always wins, but about dried fruit. It starts innocently enough. Lynn offers you a handful of dried apricots during breakfast. You nod your thanks and chew, slowly, savoring the tangy sweetness the way the fruit seems to melt in your mouth like soft sunlight. Then Dario's offended by your contented expression throws down the gauntlet. Apricots, he says with great disdain, are for people who mistake tartness for personality. Now figs. He holds one aloft like a sacred relic. Figs are poetry in fruit form. Sweet, mysterious, and full of secrets, you scoff. Figs are seeds pretending to be dessert. Avestan chimes in without looking up from his notes. Dates are older than both. They were traded on this road before your ancestors figured out what sandals were for. Lynn shrugs. I like raisins, everyone groans. What follows is a spirited, mildly absurd debate involving 4 adults and a child arguing about the fruit hierarchy of the Silk Road. Darius claims figs have historical superiority, citing vague references to Sumerian love poems. You counter with the apricot's versatility and unmatched journey through Central Asia. Avestan insists that dried dates were used as currency in parts of Mesopotamia, which, even if true, feels off-topic. Lynn unbothered munches raisins and starts drawing fruit with tiny arms and legs fighting each other in the sand. The argument escalates until Darius declares a taste test duel. 5 samples, blindfolded, 1 judge Lynn. Lynn accepts this heavy burden with the solemnity of a boy who once tried to eat a candle and regrets nothing. The test begins. Avestan carefully prepares the samples. Each fruit is cut into equal pieces and arranged on a cloth. Darius insists on dramatic music, which he provides with a flute solo that sounds like 2 ducks arguing. You and Darius each take turns chewing under Lynn's observant gaze. He squints at you like a mystic interpreting tea leaves. Then, with a grand flourish, he delivers the verdict: the apricot was juicier, but the fig had more plot development. There is a pause, then applause. No one knows what that means, but it feels correct. The day moves on under a lighter mood. The road winds gently upward, the air thinner, crisper. Mountains loom faintly in the distance, now pale shadows waiting to become real. The terrain turns pebbly, marked by dry gullies, and the occasional crumbling watchtower, leaning like a drunk trying to remember why they stood up. You pass one in the late afternoon. A hollow shell of mud brick, barely taller than 2 camels, stacked nervously. Still you pause to rest in its shade. Someone finds a bit of carved stone, once part of a wall, now covered in faded script. Avestan reads it aloud. Leave water, take only silence. Darius mumbles, so. A very old monastery, or the world's least helpful vending machine. As the sun lowers, painting the cliffs in bruised gold, you make camp near a half-dry creek. The fire crackles to life. Lynn, emboldened by his role as fruit arbiter, begins drawing faces on actual apricots with charcoal. You sit beside Darius, who passes you a fresh fig silent truce. He looks out at the horizon. We're close to something, he says. I can feel it. You nod. The mountains know. Something before the mountains. Something between one kind of world and another. Later that night, after the fire dims and the camp quiets, you sit alone with the yak bone from Kejin. You run your fingers over the carved spirals, tracing them absent-mindedly. Then you take a dried apricot from your pack and balance it gently on top of the bone, just for fun, just to see what the fruit hierarchy of the Silk Road really thinks. You sleep under stars that flicker with a rhythm just unfamiliar enough to make you wonder if they're laughing. And in your dreams, the figs and apricots wage a silent war. The raisins, as always, are neutral but ever present. Morning arrives not with sunlight, but with muttering. You wake to the sound of Farine, a usually quiet older guard, rifling through her pack, grumbling in 3 languages, and inventing new expletives in a 4th. She's waving a bronze disc in one hand, squinting at it like it just insulted her family. What's wrong, you ask, rubbing your eyes. This blasted compass, she snaps. It's off, by 3 points north and a dramatic flare to the left. You frown and shuffle over. She hands it to you. It's beautiful in that way. Ancient tools, often of finely etched markings, a stylized sun at its center, and a needle that, well, spins lazily before stopping at what is most definitely not north. Avestan joins you, brushing crumbs from his lap. That's not a compass, he says. That's an astrolabe, or at least the top of one. Farin raises an eyebrow. You mean I've been navigating with an antique decoration? Yes, he says gently, as if explaining gravity to a frustrated toddler. A lovely one, but decorative. That sun motif isn't standard for direction, unless you're following poetic metaphor. Darius appears just in time to contribute exactly 0 help. See, this is why I follow the wind. It never lies. It just misleads you, creatively. You all gather around the object. Avestan produces a scroll from his ever-expanding collection and lays it beside the disc. It's a diagram, an actual astrolabe showing a much more complex device, complete with spinning plate star maps, and the suggestion that ancient scientists had both too much time and too much math. The truth becomes clear. Farin's compass is half an astrolabe, probably gifted, looted, or mistaken for a kitchen tool somewhere along the line. She's been navigating with it for weeks. Well, she mutters, folding her arms, that explains the oasis that didn't exist. Lynn, who's been silent up to this point, chimes in from atop his ever-stoic donkey. I thought it was weird we passed the same rock 3 times. Everyone stares at him. He shrugs. I named it Steve. You laugh harder than you should, but it feels good. The road has been thick with silence lately. A proper laugh helps. Still the question remains, where are you? Now Darius volunteers to climb a small hill nearby to scout.
You go with him. The slope is loose and dry, the wind stronger up here. From the top, the landscape stretches like a faded scroll, rolling dunes to the west, sharp ridges to the east, and just at the edge of visibility, the suggestion of a man-made shape. A tower? A gate? You both stare. Is that Dunhuang? Darius whispers. Too soon, you say. Too close, unless Farin's been lost in the right direction. He laughs softly. Maybe the road got tired of us wandering and gave us a hint. You descend, share what you saw, and by midday the caravan turns east toward the distant silhouette. Farin, now deeply offended by her antique, straps it to a camel with a sign that reads, Map emotional support. Object, do not touch. The terrain changes slowly. The ground firms beneath your feet. Sparse vegetation returns low, brush grey-green brittle. You spot lizards again, darting from stone to stone as if delivering gossip. One seems to pause, blink at you and nod. You nod back.
Out of respect. As dusk falls, the shape you saw earlier grows clearer. A gate massive, weathered yet still standing, flanked by half-toppled pillars and inscriptions too worn to read. You make camp nearby, just close enough to admire, far enough not to tempt fate. That night, as everyone settles, you sit with Avestan near the fire, flipping through a scroll about ancient traveller routes. You know, he says, pointing to a faded trail marked with gold ink, this path here was supposed to be cursed. Traders called it the bent thread, a place where roads loop without turning, and your own footprints don't quite match your stride. Sounds familiar, you mutter. He nods. Maybe Farin's astrolabe knew something we didn't. You look toward the gate. It looms in the dark, just out of reach. Somewhere between you and it, the earth hums faintly. Not a sound. A sensation. Like the feeling you get just before a thunderclap, or when someone says your name in a crowded room before you realize no one did. You take the old astrolabe half from Farin's camel and turn it over in your hand. It's warm, and this time when you set it down, it points east. Steady, unmoving. You sleep with your boots on. You wake up already staring at the gate. It stands just beyond the edge of camp, huge and still, as if it had been waiting all night for someone to remember it existed. The stone pillars are bleached from sun and sand worn down to soft curves. Between them hangs nothing, no door, no barrier, just open space framed by absence. And yet it feels like a threshold. Dario stands beside you, chewing on dried ginger with the intensity of someone pretending not to be nervous. You ever notice how the older a gate is, the more it looks like it could eat you? You nod. This one has excellent teeth. Farin walks up, holding her newly reclassified astrolabe like a guilty relic. According to this thing, it's still east, same direction. You sure, you ask? She flips it over. Honestly, no, but it feels sure. You approach the gate as a group. The wind has stilled. The sky above is pale and wide, streaked with cloud like someone dragged silk across it. Lynn steps through first. Nothing happens. No boom of judgment. No vanishing act. Just a small boy and his grumpy donkey plodding through ancient stone like it's just another Tuesday. The rest of you follow. And that's when the air changes. Not the temperature, not the scent, the weight. It's subtle, a pressure behind your eyes, a feeling in your teeth, like walking into a memory. The hairs on your arms lift. Avestan lets out a low breath and says, the inscriptions are Sogdian, or something older trying to pass. You glance at the stone. The writing is shallow now, barely legible, but there are also marks, tallies.
Dozens of them, carved vertically like someone tracking days or travellers. You count 72, no names, just slashes, not ominous at all. Dario's mutters. Nothing says welcome, like prisoner math. Beyond the gate the path becomes deliberate. No more winding trails or lost forks, just a single wide road laid with stone slabs worn smooth by time. It runs straight toward a low hill topped by a circle of trees, thin, wind-bent things with leaves that shimmer like mica in the breeze. At the hill's base, the caravan halts to rest. No one argues. It feels like the sort of place where you ask permission to stay. Avestan walks slowly among the trees, reading the bark like a scripture. Darius unpacks a flute but doesn't play. He just sits with it in his lap, like holding it might help him hear something the rest of you can't. You wander uphill alone. At the top, the view opens. To the east, the road continues, but now you can see what lies ahead. Mountains. Real ones.
Snow-dusted peaks and shadowed valleys. Dunhuang waits beyond them, somewhere you can't yet see but can almost feel. Like a soft thrum beneath your ribs. And beside you, half buried in the dirt, is a stone marker. Small, round, inscribed. You kneel to clear it. At first glance it's a compass rose, but the center is hollow. And around the edge, looping characters familiar now, the same script from the moon coins, the same shape carved on the yak bone, a spiral. You reach into your pouch. The yak bone hums faintly. You glance back toward the camp. No one is watching. The wind tugs gently at your sleeve. So you place the bone into the hollow center. It fits. And for a moment, just one, the stone glows. Faint, pale green, then gone. The bone is still warm when you lift it again, but now something's changed. Where the spiral once ended, a final stroke has appeared, a curve that completes it, a signature. You don't know what it says, but you know who it's for. Back at camp, Lynn greets you with a bowl of lentils and a single, solemn raisin placed reverently on top. For strength, he says, you accept it. Darius watches you quietly. Then he nods, once satisfied, and begins to play a tune. Low, drifting. The kind of music that doesn't try to fill the air, only to float on it. It winds through the trees, through the firelight, through the worn stones and silent gate. And somehow, for the first time in days, maybe longer, you feel like you're walking with the road, not across it, not against it, with it. By mid-morning, you're walking through a silence that feels carefully curated. No wind, no animal sounds, not even the rhythmic squelch of camel hooves in dust. Just a stillness that stretches wide like the land itself is holding its breath. And then just as the quiet begins to feel too sharp, too unnatural, you see it. A marketplace. Not a bustling bazaar, not a tangle of traders and shouting and smells. No, this one is empty, perfectly so. Rows of stone stalls stretch along the road, each one neatly organized. Spices in small capped jars, silks folded and stacked, tools and trinkets laid out on mats with a precision that borders on sacred. But there are no people, not a soul in sight. Your group stops instinctively. Even the camels seem confused. Lynn's donkey snorts but softly, as if it knows yelling is inappropriate. You step into the market slowly, hand on your dagger, though no danger presents itself. Only tidiness, intent, as if the vendors just stepped away moments ago. Darius tiptoes up to a stall stacked with sandalwood figurines. He picks one up, a tiny elephant with curled tusks, and sniffs it. Fresh, he murmurs. Carved recently. Avestan crouches at a scroll display. The ink isn't even dry on this one, he whispers, running a finger along a strip of parchment. Who would leave a poem out to dry and walk away? You wander deeper. Each stall is curated like a gallery. At one, golden brooches, shaped like birds in flight. At another, bright pigments, ground into perfect little mounds, ochre, indigo, crushed malachite. A perfume booth emits a breeze that smells of rose and sandal, and something like burnt sugar. You pause at a food stand, dates, apricots, figs, all glistening with just enough dew to suggest they were washed minutes ago. Don't eat them, Darius warns from behind you. There's a very old tale about enchanted fruit. Ends with someone marrying a lemon and regretting it. You ignore him but take note. At the end of the path, a wide stone table. No sign, no seller. Just a single object, a fan, its open standing upright on a carved stand. Silk stretched between pale wooden slats, painted with a curling phoenix in flight. Delicate script dances across the silk in a loop. You can't read it. But the fan itself, it's whispering. Softly. So softly you almost don't notice. Like breath between feathers, you reach toward it. The whisper sharpens. A name. Your name. You freeze. Then Darius steps up beside you. I hate to interrupt what is clearly a flirtation between you and a fan, but I think we have company. You turn. At the far end of the market, between two stone archways, a figure, veiled in blue. She stands motionless, watching. Though you can't see her eyes, you feel them. Then, just like before, she vanishes. No sound, no dust. Just gone. Lynn speaks from somewhere behind you. I don't think this is a market. Avestan straightens slowly. No, he says. I think it's a memory. You ask whose, no one answers. You look around again, really look. Some of the stalls are oddly familiar. That scroll, it looks like one Avestan lost weeks ago. That spice jar, same label as Darius's cinnamon pouch. The apricot with the mark, identical to the one you gave Lynn 3 nights ago. You start to understand. This place isn't just abandoned. It's mirroring you. Somehow it remembers your steps, your trades, your preferences. A mirror made of marketplaces and vanished time. You back away from the fan. It flutters once, though there's no breeze. You rejoin the others. No one says much. No one has to. Even Lynn looks somber. You leave the marketplace quietly. As you walk, Darius breaks the silence. So, a ghost market. You glance at him, you think it's a trap? He shrugs. If it is, it's a polite one. Everything was labeled. Avestan chuckles softly. Perhaps it's the Silk Road itself, curating our journey, reflecting it. You don't laugh, because when you glance back, the market is gone. Not faded, not distant, gone, just the road and the wind, which has returned, carrying your name. The camels stop. Not slow, reluctant steps, not the usual grumbling protests when asked to walk one more mile. No, this is different. This is a hard stop. Like they all got a memo from the spirit world at once and collectively decided, yeah, we're done here. The road ahead is clear, at least by human standards. Flat winding slightly through low brush and rising into a gentle slope. No cliffs, no visible danger. Still, every camel refuses to take another step. You try coaxing, bribing, pleading. One of the sisters from Samarkand even sings a lullaby. Nothing. Farin walks up, squints ahead. I don't like it, she says, voice low. I've seen animals act this way before. Means something is ahead that we're not meant to see yet. Darius examines the ground theatrically. No tripwires, no banana peels. Just ominous camel intuition. Delightful. Lynn offers a solution, of course. We could blindfold them. You pause. That's a terrible idea, you start to say. Then you remember this is the same boy who carries a clay jar that hums and once traded 3 raisins for a live scorpion and somehow won that deal.
An hour later, the camels are blindfolded. Well, mostly. One keeps shaking it off. Another seems weirdly into it. But it works. One by one, they begin to walk again. You move forward cautiously, like a procession of doubters led by the world's most judgmental animals. You walk beside Darius, who's now carrying a flute like it's a holy relic, and muttering about how nothing good happens after forced camel obedience. The slope rises, and then you see it, a shrine, small, weather-worn, just off the road, half hidden among twisted shrubs, stones stacked around it in careful balance, ribbons tied to a dead tree beside it, faded red, gold, blue. They flutter in a wind you don't feel. You approach slowly. At the shrine's base, bones, not human, probably. They're arranged in a circle, small and brittle, as if someone placed them there deliberately. In the center, a smooth stone painted with a spiral. Familiar now, always familiar. Avestan steps up, whispering.
This is a traveler's offering site. Predates Buddhist way stations. Some tribes believed it marked a split in the world. A fork in the road, you ask? No, he says, a fork in reality. Lynn's donkey lets out a disgruntled snort. You all stare. Then Darius, of course, steps forward and lays down one of his flutes, the small, cracked one that sounds like a dying pigeon. I think we're supposed to leave something. Farin nods slowly. She places one of her bronze arrowheads beside it. You dig into your pouch and find the cracked moon coin, the one that had stopped glowing after the dream. It feels dull now, almost sad. You hesitate, then place it gently on the stone. Lynn steps forward, holding an apricot. He lays it down like a royal gift. You all wait. Nothing happens. But the camels, still blindfolded, suddenly relax. One sighs dramatically and begins chewing a bush. You move on. The road seems easier now, smoother, the air lighter, the silence less heavy. You travel quietly for a while, each person lost in thought. You feel unburdened. Not lighter exactly, but steadier. like something let go of your shoulders without asking for permission first. Later that evening, you set up camp near a dry riverbed, shaped like a giant fingerprint. The sky burns orange and purple, fading into the kind of twilight that makes you feel both enormous and very, very small. As the fire crackles, Dario sits beside you, tuning a new flute he carved yesterday from a branch he swears was humming when he found it. "You think we passed a boundary?" you ask him. He doesn't look up. "I think we passed a question, one we didn't know we were asking." You glance at the others, Farin sharpening her dagger without menace, Avestan flipping through a scroll, slowly smiling faintly, Lin drawing spirals in the dirt with a stick while his donkey watches like a tired librarian. You look east, toward what's next, and in that moment, the fire flickers. The flames curve not upward but slightly to the side, as if pulled by something. The wind picks up, and with it a soft sound, not words, not song, but the echo of permission. You close your eyes, and sleep comes not heavy but clean, like the kind that waits at the end of a long road, just past the place where camels refuse to walk. You're halfway through packing up camp when the sound arrives, a sharp cry from above, piercing, high, unmistakable. A falcon. You look up and spot it, slicing across the pale morning sky, its wings pulled tight in a steep dive. The bird twists once in midair and pulls upward with elegant violence, disappearing into the clouds as quickly as it came. Then a second sound follows hoofbeats. Not the rhythmic clomp of camels or plodding donkeys. These are faster, lighter. Horses. You barely have time to signal before they arrive, a small group cresting the ridge, led by a boy who can't be older than 15. His robe flares behind him, stitched with silver thread, and on his gloved hand perches a falcon wearing a tiny beak cap shaped like a crescent moon. He reins in smoothly. "Greetings," he says, voice steady, formal. "I am Kujan, son of the Falcon House of Samarkand. I bring a message and possibly lunch." The bird ruffles its feathers like it's deeply unimpressed with your group. Kujan dismounts with more grace than seems reasonable for someone that age. He carries a satchel filled with small leather scroll tubes and several ornate rings that he wears like badges. Lin leans toward you and whispers, "Is he royalty or a traveling magician?" Both you murmur back. Kujan addresses Avestan first. "Your request for passage through the east gate has been noted. The keepers are aware. They offer silence and safe skies, conditional upon respect." Avestan, ever the professional, bows. Kujan turns to Darius next. "And for you, the House of Songs sends greetings. They say your third melody has not been forgotten." Darius looks startled. "That was years ago. I barely remember it." "Your flute does," Kujan says and smiles. He finally turns to you, no formal greeting, just a look. His falcon leans forward on its perch, tilts its head, and lets out a single key sound. Kujan nods slightly. She says she knows your name. You blink. "That's nice of her," you say carefully. "Does she speak often? Only when something is true?" The falcon closes her eyes like she's deeply bored by your disbelief. Kujan sets up a small camp a little distance from yours, just far enough for polite diplomacy, just close enough for you to hear him telling his falcon, "No, you cannot eat the raisins. They're sentient." He joins your fire later, offering a small tin of dried meat strips and pressed cherry paste. "From home," he says, "we trade with the northern tribes. They like sweets. We like silence." Darius takes a bite and immediately declares it cherry leather made by the hands of angels and tax evaders. Kujan smiles faintly. My uncle does make good things. That evening he explains more: his house, his path, his bird. We've flown this road for 3 generations, he says. Falcons are faster than riders. We deliver news between houses, carry tokens, sometimes warn of storms. You ask how he found you. He shrugs. The spiral shows where to look. You freeze. He reaches into his sleeve and pulls out a pendant. It's small bone white carved into a spiral, identical to the yak bone you carry. We're taught to follow patterns, he says. Some people are on paths, some people are the path. You glance at Avestan. He's already scribbling furiously. You glance at Darius. He looks away quickly, then tunes his flute with deep concern. Later, under the stars, Kujan lets his falcon fly wide loops overhead. She vanishes into the dark, then returns without command. Lin watches in awe, chewing dried mango and whispering "That's so cool" every 10 seconds. You sit beside Kujan and ask him softly, "Did your falcon really know my name?" He nods. Names are written in more than language. They echo. Then he pulls something from his satchel and hands it to you. It's a wax seal, old, worn, faded. The symbol is hard to make out, but part of it looks like your coin's spiral, and part of it looks like an eye. She said to give you this, Kujan says. Said it would matter when the road speaks again. You ask, when does the road speak? Kujan doesn't answer, but the falcon overhead lets out another cry. Louder this time, sharper, and far in the east, just on the edge of hearing, you think you hear an echo answering back. The next morning feels different. Not louder, not busier, just charged, like someone whispered a secret to the wind during the night, and now the air is waiting to see if you heard it. Kujan is gone. No hoofprints, no farewell. Just a single silver feather placed neatly atop your pack. His falcon too has vanished unless that's her, high above a dark blur, cutting circles into the sky like a question mark with wings. You turn the feather over in your hand. It's cool, impossibly light. The edges shimmer faintly like light through heat. You tuck it into your pouch beside the wax seal. Darius approaches, yawning. So, our bird boy vanished with all the drama of a minor deity. Did he at least leave breakfast? You gesture to a small cloth bundle left by the fire. It contains 5 pieces of pressed cherry paste and a folded parchment bearing only 2 words. Keep listening. Naturally, this inspires a full hour of speculation, during which Avestan insists it's a code. Lin proposes that it's advice for surviving arguments with camels, and Darius claims it's probably falcon speak. For you dropped this nerd. You don't tell them what the falcon said. You're still trying to understand it yourself. As the group resumes walking, the road softens again, winding into shallow hills, dotted with sagebrush and rock outcrops that look suspiciously like sleeping giants. The silence stretches in long, thoughtful strands until you reach for your saddlebag and find something extra, a letter, folded into quarters, sealed with dark wax, no crest. The parchment is crisp, but faintly scented clove, perhaps cinnamon. A familiar kind of warmth. You don't remember receiving it. No one handed it to you. No one mentions it. You break the seal slowly. Inside, delicate handwriting, a single sheet and a message written just for you. To the one walking eastward, you have already passed the thing you sought. You were looking the wrong way. The voice that called your name did not come from the stars. It came from your own forgotten breath. Return to the place you kept it, or let it find you first. Either way, someone remembers.
A friend of the spiral. You read it 3 times. The words don't change, but something in you does. You fold it carefully, tucking it deep into your cloak. For the rest of the day, the world feels a bit shifted. The trees lean slightly toward the road. The rocks seem arranged more precisely than erosion should allow. Even the sky feels tailored clouds forming long, curling streaks like brushstrokes on ancient parchment. By dusk, you find a place to camp near an outcropping that forms a natural alcove. Inside, worn carvings cover the walls, simple rhythmic designs, hands' eyes, spirals, footprints that loop into themselves. Dario stares at them for a long time. Someone's been following us, he finally says. Or leading you offer. He doesn't disagree. Later, as the fire burns low, you check your saddlebag again instinctively. No more letters. But the parchment from before feels heavier. Or maybe that's your conscience. And just when you're about to drift off, a breeze lifts the edge of your blanket. Something slips out from beneath it. Another parchment. This one, shorter. Just a sentence. You gave your name away once. You'll have to earn it back. You sit bolt upright. No one else is awake. The fire crackles calm and soft. The night sounds normal, completely normal, except for one thing. The letter is written in your own handwriting, and you have no memory of writing it. You don't sleep much. Hard to after finding a note in your own handwriting that you don't remember writing. You lie awake, listening to the fire fade, tracing the words over and over in your mind like a prayer wrapped in confusion. You gave your name away once. You'll have to earn it back. What does that even mean? The name you carry is the one you were given, or so you always thought.
But the more this journey stretches, the more you begin to wonder, what else did you inherit without question, and how much of that was borrowed or stolen? By dawn, you're up already packed, pacing the edges of camp. The sun peeks over the distant ridges, stretching golden fingers across the stones. It's going to be a warm day. Lynn rises next, hair tousled and eyes still squinting. Did you sleep, he asks, yawning. Not really. He hands you a raisin, no explanation, just the single wrinkled thing in his tiny palm. You eat it, and somehow it helps. The caravan moves on slower today. The land dips into gullies and gentle ravines with occasional signs of once settled places, crumbling terraces, dry canals, the faint ghosts of walls carved into hillsides. You pass a tree dead, hollowed out by time, but someone has hung a single copper bell from one of its branches. It sways gently in the breeze. Darius taps it lightly as you pass. It rings once clear, sweet, and weirdly final. By mid-morning, the path begins to change. Not dramatically, not like some sudden shift, but subtly. The gravel turns finer, the dust settles differently, and under your feet the road feels arranged. As if the stones were placed, you glance around, and there they are. Stacks of stones, deliberate cairns, rising from the roadside like silent travelers, each one a little different. Some tall, some squat, some balanced with impossible precision, all weathered. At the base of one, a piece of silk, tied like a scarf. At another, a carved wooden toy horse, half buried. These aren't landmarks, they're memories, offerings. I've read about this, Avestan says, quietly. The path of the unnamed. Said to be a ritual way station where travelers who'd lost someone or something left a token behind, so the road would carry it east. He pauses. Others say it's where the road leaves something behind in you. Lin is the first to stop. He walks up to a small cairn and takes something out of his pouch, a wax figure in the shape of a fish. You recognize it. It came from a vendor days ago, part of a trade he was too embarrassed to explain. He places it carefully, then steps back, looking suddenly older. Darius follows next. He kneels by a tall cairn and produces a flute, not one of his good ones, the broken one, the one that always sounded like it was being played underwater. He kisses it once, then buries it under a flat stone. "I wanted to fix it," he says softly. But maybe it didn't need fixing. Maybe it just needed letting go. Even Avestan leaves something, an inkstone worn to the base, the one he's used to write nearly every scroll on this journey. He places it with reverence, murmuring words you don't catch. You hesitate. Your hand goes to the wax seal from Kujan. But no, not yet. Instead, you reach into your cloak and pull out the parchment, the one that came in your handwriting. You read it once more, then place it under the smallest cairn you can find. Not as an offering, but as a promise. You walk on. The cairns thin out behind you. The path begins to climb, rising gently toward the horizon. The land opens into wide grasslands, golden and rippling under the breeze. Distant shapes move across the hills, antelope maybe, or shadows pretending to be them. You camp near a small spring that night, clear and cold and still sacred to someone if the smooth stones and old coins at its base mean anything. Lin falls asleep mid-sentence, wrapped around his jar like it's a pillow. Darius hums something low soft, a tune without a key. Avestan mutters notes to himself as he stares at the stars, fingers sketching spiral shapes in the air. And you sit apart again, not troubled, just listening, waiting for your name to come back, or for you to become the person who earns it. Either way, the road hasn't stopped, and neither will you, the hills whisper. Not in words, but in motion, in the way they breathe under the wind. You crest one after another, each revealing a new stretch of golden sea, tall grasses rolling like slow waves. The rhythm of your steps syncs with the pulse of the land. You forget to speak. Everyone does, even Darius. It's almost eerie. Until he breaks the silence naturally. Either we're walking through the world's largest tea field, or we've finally entered the part of the Silk Road sponsored by Serenity. Avestan murmurs, "These are the steps of listening." You glance at him, old belief, he says, held by the wandering tribes of this region. They said the land here could hear you, not with ears, but with memory. Every word spoken aloud becomes part of the wind. Darius shivers. "Remind me not to complain about my feet then." You pause, look around. The grass is too tall to see beyond it, too still to feel random. Something about it all watches. "Should we whisper?" Lin asks. You nod. The road becomes narrow, almost swallowed by the grass. It brushes your legs, rustles against your pack. Insects flit in and out, flashes of iridescent blue and green. Somewhere to the left, a lark lets out a sharp, spiraling trill, and immediately 3 more answer. It echoes strangely, as if the air remembers what it just heard and is showing off. You descend into a shallow valley, and the grass gives way to a clearing, a bowl of flat land ringed with stones. In the center, a circle of wooden poles planted upright and draped with faded cloth, a shrine, a memorial, or maybe a conversation frozen in place. Avestan steps forward reverently. "Sky posts," he says, "shamanic tradition. This is where voices were offered to the wind, where the land was asked to listen. There are things tied to the poles, feathers, bracelets, scraps of parchment, lengths of horsehair. One has a child's drawing a sun with a face smiling crookedly. Another has an inscription so weather-worn it's almost invisible. You trace your finger over it. Just one word remains. Stay. The silence grows deeper. Not hostile, not empty, just vast. You all sit for a while unbidden. A kind of reverence takes hold, not religious, not even spiritual. Just the feeling you get in a museum at midnight or walking alone through snow. That whisper of, "Don't break this." Then Lin's sweet chaos in boy form gently places his jar in the center of the posts. And something happens. The wind stirs, only for a moment, but in that moment the grass all around shivers, the poles creak, the cloth flutters once, and Lin's jar emits a low resonant tone like a bell in a distant temple. Darius raises an eyebrow. Okay, I'm just going to say it is the jar magic. Lin shrugs. It makes noise sometimes when I think about my brother. You all go quiet again. Then very softly Avestan speaks. I lost someone too. And that's it. But somehow it's everything. One by one you each speak not stories, not eulogies, just names. One or two, some whispered, some breathed. You speak yours last. A name you hadn't planned to say aloud. A name you hadn't thought of in years. When you finish, the wind returns, just briefly, and rustles the grass behind you. A post creaks, a bird calls overhead, and the silence after is different. Less heavy, more whole. You rise together. Lin retrieves his jar, now slightly warmer to the touch. Darius places a small carved spiral on one of the poles. Avestan lingers, eyes closed. Farin leaves behind a tiny brass ring she wore on her toe, muttering something about balance and bad choices. The path continues through the grassland, softer now, easier, like something opened. That evening you camp on a low rise surrounded by tall grass that hums in the breeze. The fire crackles gently. Darius plays a song with no melody, a lullaby for a place, not a person.
And you dream again. But this time it isn't the veiled woman. It's the posts, swaying in rhythm. And a voice, not yours, not quite whispering. The name you lost wasn't stolen, it was given. And you're almost ready to take it back. You wake with dew on your cheeks and the certainty that you've passed another gate, not marked by stone, but by sound. The next village appears like a mirage, stitched into the fabric of the land mud brick walls, so close in colour to the surrounding hills. They seem to rise directly from the earth huts, with domed roofs clustered like sun-baked mushrooms. No gate, no guards, just silence and the scent of roasted barley drifting towards you on the wind. You approach cautiously. No barking dogs, no shouting merchants, no scampering children. And then, from around a corner, an old woman appears. She's stooped, wrapped in a tattered robe, patterned with faded cranes, and holding a broom fashioned from willow twigs. She doesn't startle.
Doesn't speak. She just nods once, then sweeps, like your arrival is as routine as dust. You exchange glances with Darius, who shrugs. Either she's incredibly serene, or we've wandered into a retirement village for oracles. The rest of the villagers emerge slowly, all older, all silent. Women with silver-threaded braids, men with hands like roots and eyes like smoke. They observe you like they're reading a weather pattern, not people. But there's no suspicion, only recognition. Avestan steps forward, offers a formal bow. We mean no harm, just passing through. One man gestures to a shaded courtyard, a place to sit. Another offers a tray of dried plums and something steaming in clay cups. Barley tea, sharp and earthy. Lin sips, grimaces and whispers, tastes like someone boiled a sock full of oats. You sip and nod politely. It's acquired. Conversation unfolds, not with speech, but with gestures, glances, offerings. Someone mimes the road ahead. Someone else draws a spiral in the dirt. The entire village seems built around it. The spiral. You begin to notice the pattern everywhere. Etched into walls, sewn into fabric, carved into walking sticks. Not identical, but always echoing the same curve, the same gentle in-turning loop. One woman places her hand on your shoulder and presses a small object into your palm. It's a token, bone of course, a spiral carved into its surface. But this one is different, raised, not incised, like something being born instead of remembered. Aveston leans over your shoulder. That's not just a symbol, that's a pass. You frown, a pass for what he nods toward the far edge of the village, where a narrow path snakes into the hills, steeper than any you've yet climbed, flanked by stones arranged in rhythmic spacing. They call it the threaded way. Legend says only those marked by the spiral can climb it safely, that those who try without permission lose themselves. Darius chews a plum swallows loudly. Define lose. Memory, name, intention, direction, it varies. Of course it does. Darius sighs, classic vague legend threat. The villagers begin preparing bundles for you, sachets of herbs, strips of salted root cloth wraps for feet, a gesture not of hospitality but of preparation. They know where you're going, and they know it matters. You spend one last quiet night in the village. Around the fire no one speaks. Even Lynn stays silent, gazing at the stars like they're spelling something only he can read. You sleep lightly and dream of a needle threading through fabric, not cotton or silk, but stone and wind and memory. The thread it pulls glows, and you're holding the other end. Morning. A woman waits at the trailhead. She says nothing, just hands you a flask of cold, mint-infused water and touches the spiral token on your palm. Then she vanishes behind a curtain of reeds. The climb begins. Narrow, sharp switchbacks, no shade. But the earth holds a strange calm, like it's watching. And after only 20 steps, you realize something's changed. It's not just your feet moving, it's your mind. Memories rise unasked, unchronological. The taste of honeyed almonds on your 4th birthday. The sound of distant hooves on a night you ran from something you now can't name. A kiss that never happened but always felt real. You pause, blink hard. The trail doesn't curve. You do. Darius groans ahead. Why do I feel like my spine is remembering bad decisions? Avestan answers from behind, breathless. Because this trail is threaded with mnemonic stones. They were arranged to pull memory, like acupuncture, but for the soul. Farin mutters, I hate this road. I hate this road so much. But you all keep climbing. The spiral gave you passage, and the hill is pulling your story out by the seams. By late afternoon, you reach a ridge. Below you, a sea of clouds. Above you, a marker.
Carved stone cracked, but legible. It reads, Here begins the edge of forgetting. Step lightly. Speak truly. Leave only your oldest name. Darius touches your shoulder. I'm not ready. You nod, me neither. But you step forward anyway. Because the road is not about being ready. It's about remembering why you came. The edge of forgetting feels like a breath caught in your chest. One step past the marker, and the world changes not in shape, but in texture. The air is thinner, laced with something ancient and sharp. Not danger exactly, more like exposure. As if the land here sees through you, you walk in silence. The path is narrow now, barely more than a ribbon of stone clinging to the spine of the mountain. To your left, a drop so sheer it seems to scrape the sky. To your right, a wall of shale scored by wind and time into knife-edge ridges. And then you notice it. Your thoughts are no longer arriving in order.
You think of your mother's hands before you remember her face. You recall the smell of firewood before the word fire. It's like your mind is being unspooled, one delicate memory at a time. Avestan had warned you. The threaded way pulls you inward, not cruelly, but without permission. The spiral doesn't need you to explain, it just wants you to listen. Darius ahead of you stops suddenly, you catch up. He's staring at a cairn. But not just any cairn, this one is marked with a flute. Your flute. The cracked one you left behind days ago. You blink. We left that, yeah, he says. We did. He kneels, gently lifts it. It's still broken, still his, but it's different now. The crack is polished, smoothed by time it didn't have. You both stare at it, and Darius laughs softly. Guess the road gives back what it likes. You move on. Soon, Avestan calls from behind. Stop. Look. You turn. Your footprints. There are two sets. Yours now, and yours ahead of you. You didn't step there yet, but there they are. Perfect prints in soft dust, as if the path has already seen you walk it. Temporal echo, Avestan whispers. The spiral might be folding time here. It's remembering your future. Farin sighs. This is why I hate Wizard Hills. Lynn, blissfully untroubled, skips ahead and calls out, "Hey, there's someone up here." You rush to him. A man stands at the bend in the path, tall, wrapped in dark wool eyes, hidden under a deep hood. No movement, no breath, just standing, waiting. You approach cautiously. "Hello." He raises a hand, not threatening, just to stop you. And then he speaks. Your name, not the one you use now, not the one others call you, but the first one, the one only you remember. Maybe not even fully, maybe just the shape of it, the music, the ache. It roots you to the spot. How do you know that you ask, voice thin? The figure pulls back his hood. You're staring at yourself. Older, weathered, but you.
And not just older. Wiser, quieter. Whole. He smiles. "I knew you'd come back." You whisper, "Come back," from what he points to your chest. From forgetting. The moment fractures like glass, shattering in slow motion, and suddenly you remember the night you first left home, the name you gave up to protect someone else, the one you buried under silence and years and dust. You remember the promise, "I'll carry it for you until you're strong enough to take it back." You said that, and now here you are, ready, or close enough. The older you nods once, then turns, walks down a path that wasn't there before. You don't follow, you don't need to. Instead, you kneel, pick up a smooth stone by your feet, carve the spiral into it with your dagger, then place it in the wall beside the path. A small offering to the version of you that waited, and the one still learning to arrive. The wind shifts. Your mind clears, not all at once, but gently.
The world straightens, the sky feels real again. You look back. The others are there, Lynn, Darius, Avestan, Farin. They don't say a word, but they know they saw it too. That night you camp on the highest point yet, on a ledge under stars so close they feel like secrets. You take the wax seal from your pouch, hold it up to the moonlight, then press it to your chest. Just once, then let it fall into the fire. It burns without smoke, without flame, just light. And a sound like a key turning in a door you hadn't known was locked. The descent begins not dramatic, there's no sudden cliff, no cinematic tumble into lush valleys, just a gentle sloping away from the edge of forgetting the trail, curving downward like a sigh, finally released. And the world around you exhales. The land softens. The light warms. Grass returns, brushing your calves as you walk. Small flowers bloom along the trail, yellow, violet, white, as if someone painted them overnight, just to reassure you that you're still in the realm of color. Even the wind feels different. Less like a messenger, more like a companion. You notice it first in Lynn. The boy who once chirped constantly has grown quiet, but not in fear or confusion. He's watching the road, the sky, the way shadows lean across stones, like he's listening to something you can't quite hear yet. Darius hums as he walks, a soft, wordless melody that follows the pace of your footsteps. It rises and falls with the terrain, like he's stitching the world together as you move through it. Your song changed, you say. He nods. So did the road. Aveston is still scribbling notes, but they're looser now, sketches, not transcripts. You glance at one, a map, with no roads. Only spirals connecting small symbols, a jar, a flute, a falcon, a gate. Are you drawing our journey, you ask? No, he says. I think the road is. Farin seems almost relaxed, which in her case means she hasn't threatened to curse anyone's camel in several hours. At a turn in the path, she stops beside a stone cairn that wasn't there yesterday. No one built it. Not in your group anyway. It's short, just 4 stones, and at the top your moon coin, the one you left behind at the offering circle. You walk up slowly, pluck it from the cairn. It's warm, familiar, different. On the back, a new etching, the spiral, complete now. A tiny dot in the center. A seed. You don't say anything, just slip it back into your pouch and keep walking. The trail widens. You reach a ledge that opens onto a broad vista. Below the desert again, but not the one you crossed before. This one is gold rippling in layers, broken only by what lies in the distance Dunhuang. It rests like a secret, folded into the earth-walled ancient low roofs, curling upward like scroll edges. Beyond it, the outline of the Mogao caves, dark mouths dotting the cliff like punctuation marks left by saints. You all stop to look. Is that it? Lynn breathes. Darius places a hand over his eyes. Either that, or we just discovered the largest mirage in recorded history. Farin crosses her arms. We've still got distance to cover, and probably a test or 2 left. She's not wrong. The road winds through dry hills for another day and a half. You pass more signs, some subtle, some not. A crow sitting on a cairn, its beak touching the spiral carved into the top stone. A set of footprints leading nowhere, that match your own gait. A tree struck by lightning, but still green on one side. Each feels like a checkpoint, or a whisper. Then one afternoon you reach the Bridge of Names. It's not marked on any map. It spans a dry riverbed just 20 paces across, made of ancient redwood planks, lashed with rope, that looks older than most kingdoms. At the center, a single post carved with thousands of characters, layered, overlapping, names. You step onto the bridge. The moment your foot touches wood, you feel it. Your name, your true name, rising in your chest. You cross slowly. Midway you pause, press your hand to the post, and though you can't find it, you know your name is there, etched by the road itself. At the far end, the earth flattens. The dunes fade into compact dust, and just beyond the next ridge, the walls of Dunhuang rise like the edge of a dream, finally remembered. That night, you camp in view of the city. Close enough to smell juniper wood smoke on the wind. Far enough that it still feels mythical. Lynn sits beside you, silent for a long time. Then do you think the city knows we're coming? You smile, it's been expecting us. You look up at the stars, and for the first time in a long while they don't look distant. They look familiar, as if they too are tracing a spiral, back to the center, back to where your name lives. You arrive at the gates of Dunhuang just before dawn. The sky is painted in muted blues and hushed, rose the kind of colors that make you whisper without knowing why. The city walls rise ahead, thick with centuries of dust, sun-bleached and pocked with age. No banners, no music, just silence and sand, but the guards are waiting. Two of them standing like sentinels from an old parable, robes, crisp eyes, unreadable spears grounded in silence. They do not ask for names, they do not check scrolls or demand coin. One looks at your spiral token, nods, and opens the gate. It doesn't creak, doesn't groan. It swings inward like it's been waiting for you, specifically, to walk through. Inside the city is quiet, not empty, just early. Vendors setting up their stalls, monks walking barefoot through side streets, prayer beads whispering in rhythm with each step. A fruit seller yawns and gently places apricots into a woven basket like he's tucking them in for a nap. Everything here seems gentle, intentional, far in mutters, feels like the city's dreaming. You walk through its heart, past temples with curved roofs that glitter faintly in the morning haze, past courtyards where sparrows dart through carved gates chasing invisible threads of incense, past walls painted with faded murals, gods, demons, travelers, horses all tangled in color and myth. And then you see it. A single stairway, narrow and steep, tucked behind a tea house with wind chimes shaped like lotus blossoms. No sign, no guard. But Avestan nods. That's the one. The stair leads you upward through sandstone passageways that twist like veins, walls smooth from 1,000 brush strokes of pilgrims' hands. You emerge into a cavern carved directly into the rock, one of the Mogao caves. It is unlike anything you've seen. The space glows with soft, refracted light. Frescoes cover every inch, bodhisattvas with elongated fingers and compassionate eyes, tigers made of cloud cities floating on the backs of turtles. The air smells like ink dust and time. At the far end, a figure, not a monk, not a guard, just a man in grey robes, sitting cross-legged before a massive mural of a spiral swallowing a sun. He opens his eyes as you approach. "You're late," he says. You raise an eyebrow. "We're early. Dawn just started." He shrugs. Time arrives differently for those who carry the spiral. You sit. The others join quietly, forming a rough circle. He studies each of you, then focuses on you. The spiral is not a path, it is a process. What was given, what was lost, what was forgotten, what was earned. You've reached the outer ring. You swallow. There's more. There's always more, he says, but not in steps. From here it folds inward. He reaches beside him and lifts a scroll. Old, thin, bound with silk string. For the next part you must write it yourself. He places it in your hands. Blank. You feel its weight, a gravity that tugs not at your arms but at your voice, at everything you've remembered along the road. Darius leans over. Don't mess it up, no pressure, just the destiny of your soul. Lynn offers you a mango chip. You accept it because ceremony or not, mango helps. The man nods toward the mural. Before you leave, trace the spiral. One time only, as slow as the breath that carried your name across the mountains. You step forward. The mural is massive, paint flaking edges blurred with centuries, but the spiral is unmistakable. Your hand rises palm open, and you begin the trace. 1 loop, 2, 3. Each circle draws something out. Memories, promises, names whispered, and names lost. You think of the flute, the jar, the veiled woman, of the gate and the bridge and the shrines, of a version of yourself that waited on the mountain trail. You finish at the center, and as your hand lifts away, you feel it. Your name. The real one. The one that was never about syllables or sound, but shape, motion, meaning. You turn back. Everyone's watching. The scroll in your hand feels warmer now, as if it knows what's coming. The man nods once. Leave the city by sunset. The spiral is generous, but it dislikes being lingered over. You descend in silence, back into the waking city. Dunhuang bustles now alive with song and smoke and sunlight catching on silk banners. But you all move like shadows, slipping through its beauty with a reverence you didn't have before. At the gate, a new guard stops you. He points to your pouch. Do you carry the spiral? You hold up the coin. He bows not to you but to the coin and steps aside. Beyond the city, the road splits. One path loops north toward the steppes again. One heads south into valleys wrapped in mist. And the third, straight ahead, toward a land you've never seen drawn on any map. You look at your companions. They don't ask, they just follow, because they too have begun to spiral. Inward, homeward, forward. The road beyond Dunhuang doesn't feel like a continuation. It feels like an echo, a gentle reverberation of everything you've passed through. The shifting sands, the veiled faces, the falcon's cry, the whisper of names once forgotten and now returned. But it also feels unfamiliar, wilder. You walk through river valleys that bloom with wild mint and whispering reeds. You pass stone terraces carved into cliffsides now claimed by moss, and the occasional goat that watches you like you owe it an apology. No caravans travel this way, no traders, no pilgrims, only those who have walked the spiral. The path forks constantly, not with signs or markers, just faint trails that tug at your instinct more than your eyes. Sometimes you walk 3 miles only to return to a place that looks identical to where you began, until you notice one detail that's changed. A new flower, a single coin on the ground, a memory that feels closer. Darius breaks the quiet. So, where are we going exactly? Besides into increasingly poetic metaphors, you smile to the source of what everything. He groans dramatically but doesn't complain again. That afternoon, the landscape shifts once more. The sky darkens slightly, though no clouds appear. The light filters down in beams like a theatre waiting for its actors to step on stage. And then you see it, a single stone arch, freestanding, weathered smooth, no building around it, no wall, just the arch. And beyond it, nothing. Not emptiness, but something deeper. A shimmer in the air like heat off sand. The edge of reality folded inward, waiting. You step closer. The arch is carved with a spiral, of course, and something else, a line of text, ancient and uneven. You trace your fingers across it. To walk further, you must carry less. You glance at your companions. They're already unpacking. Lin places his jar on the ground, gently, one last time. It hums, once then goes silent. Darius leaves behind his last flute. Farin sets down her dagger but keeps the handle just the memory of the blade. Avestan tears out a single page from his journal and lets the wind take the rest. And you open your pouch. The scroll is still there, still blank. You unwrap it, but it's not blank anymore. Written across it in your handwriting, the path was never straight. You are always walking toward yourself. You fold it, place it in your cloak. Then you remove everything else, the coin, the fan, even the feather. They go into a small pile beside the arch. You step through, and the world shifts. Not violently, not even dramatically, just softly, like stepping into a thought you forgot you had. The ground beneath your feet feels warm alive. The air smells like distant rain and crushed lavender. Light pulses through the trees. Yes, trees now silver-barked and swaying without wind. Your companions step through beside you, but you feel them differently, like echoes of themselves. Or maybe like you're all finally tuned to the same frequency. This place isn't a destination. It's a mirror. Everything here reflects what you brought with you. You see Darius, as he once was a boy, playing a bone flute by firelight alone in the mountains. You see Lin at the feet of his brother, listening to stories with eyes so wide they could hold entire skies. You see Farin not as a fighter, but as a child dancing barefoot under a rainstorm, laughing like it couldn't end. You see Avestan kneeling beside a crumbling scroll, crying for a name he once erased. And you see yourself in the spiral, in the way the road curled, then straightened, then curved again. In the quiet nights, the confused mornings, the moments where you carried silence like armor and truth like a wound. The spiral never took you anywhere new. It just brought you back to you. You sleep that night under silver leaves, and the dreams are gentle. A boat gliding over mist. A voice humming without words. A road always ahead, but no longer demanding anything from your feet, only from your heart. And as your eyes drift closed, you hear it once more. Not the falcon, not the wind, but your own voice, calling you home. Morning arrives like a kindness, not loud, not insistent, just a soft glow that spills through the silver canopy above, warming your cheeks and tracing golden lines along the curve of your fingers. When you open your eyes, the world around you is quiet, but not empty. You're not alone. Figures stand in the trees, not spirits, not strangers. Reflections. Your younger self stands nearest, barefoot, scraped knees, a piece of string tied around one wrist like a sacred relic. Their eyes are wide and full of questions they haven't yet learned to hide. Farther back, another version, older, hunched, slightly eyes, shadowed from a time when you nearly gave up, when the road became heavy and your own thoughts turned inward like fists. And then the version of you that waited on the mountain, the one who gave you your name back. They nod and vanish. You rise. Your companions stir, each absorbed in their own reflection. Dario speaking softly to his childhood self. Lin laughing at something only he understands. Avestan holding hands with no one but breathing like someone forgiven. Farin has her arms crossed, but there's softness in her jaw. I hate metaphysical forests, she mutters, and wipes a tear away like she's swatting a fly. You move forward. The spiral leads again, no longer a path in the dirt, but a glimmering thread in the air like a beam of moonlight twisting between trunks. You follow it through groves that breathe over moss so soft it hums when you step on it. Eventually, it leads to a clearing, circular of course, At its center, a pool. Still, clear. Ringed with stones etched in dozens of languages, none of them modern, all of them true. A sign beside the water reads in simple brush strokes, "To see what you've become, look in stillness." You kneel beside it. No ripples, no tricks, just your face. But it's all your face is layered. The one who left home, the one who made the mistake, the one who forgave someone who didn't deserve it, the one who stood on the edge of forgetting and whispered their name into the wind. You blink, and the faces align. Just you, present, awake, whole. The spiral has no end, only deepening.
And you feel that now in your bones, in your breath, in the way the silence around you wraps your heart like a hand. Behind you, Lynn whispers, "Do we have to leave this place?" You turn smiling. "No, but we're meant to." Dario sighs. Classic enlightenment trap. Get peace just in time to carry it somewhere else. But he's already gathering his pack. Farin tightens the strap on her empty scabbard. The world still has sharp corners. Avestan sketches the pool, once then lets the page flutter away. You take one last look, then step beyond the clearing. There's no trail now, no stone markers, no cairns, no falcons overhead. Just instinct. You walk by feel, trusting that the road now follows you. And when the wind comes soft, jasmine-scented and laced with memory, it carries no warnings. Only a single word so faint it barely arrives. Continue. The way back, if you can call it that, is quieter than you imagined. You expected fanfare, revelation.
Maybe even a few cosmic bells chiming triumphantly as you descended from the spiral's final loop like a hero from a myth with excellent posture. Instead, there is stillness, and the sound of your own breathing. You walk for hours without speaking, and strangely, without needing to. The silence isn't empty, it's full. Rich with everything you now carry: memory, name, intention. The road reappears eventually, not as stone or sand, but as alignment. Trees bend away in just the right places. The sun shifts at your back. Even the clouds seem to clear a path overhead, and gradually the world you once knew returns. Not all at once, but in signs. A familiar breeze rustling with desert heat. The scent of cumin from a far-off cook fire. The brief flash of a blue scarf, someone passing on a camel, unaware that the sky above them once heard your name. Lynn breaks the silence first, chewing on a date pit like it's a life decision. "So, does this mean we're enlightened now?" Dario snorts. "I'm still hungry, so probably not." Farin stretches, cracking her neck. "I feel lighter. Also, I miss yelling at someone." You smile. "We're not finished, just farther." Avestan murmurs almost to himself. The spiral never ends. It just narrows. You camp by a stream that night. The sky is wide again, stars brighter, maybe because you're looking with new eyes. Darius plays a melody that feels circular. Lynn whistles counterpoint in his sleep. Avestan sketches a map of nothing, just dots and arcs with no legend. You recognize it as memory. And you open the scroll. The one you carried through the spiral. You expected to find it unchanged, or full of hidden text, or maybe just glowing softly with ancient wisdom, because that's the kind of poetic nonsense your journey has trained you to anticipate. But no, it's a letter from you to you. You were never lost. You were just circling yourself, waiting to land. You close it, fold it carefully, slide it back into your pouch, then you sleep. And this time your dream is simple. You're walking along a road, ordinary and flat. No symbols, no illusions. But every time your foot touches the ground, something blooms behind you, a flower, a memory, a name. And in the dream, someone walks ahead, never turning back, never speaking, but you know who it is. It's you, further on, still walking, still weaving, still winding towards something that isn't a destination but a depth. And you follow, gladly. Because the spiral has done its work. It's not around you anymore, it's within you now. The final leg of your journey unfolds like silk drawn through practiced fingers, smooth, steady, without resistance. You wake to birdsong so precise it sounds rehearsed. The sun rises through tall reeds, painting golden bars across the ground, as if caging the last of your old doubts. You pack your things slowly, no rush, no wait. You feel light, not empty, but full of space. The kind of spaciousness that follows understanding. Like a room you've finally cleaned out after years of avoiding it, only to discover that it echoes now when you speak. The road meanders gently, past a village where children play with sticks carved into spirals, past a market square where a woman sells flatbread shaped like the phases of the moon, past a bridge you're certain you've never crossed, but that somehow bears your footprint already. You reach a hill in the late afternoon, its slope soft and blooming with tiny blue flowers. From the top you can see the world unfurling. No cities, no gates, no final tests, just road. And above it all, sky. You sit down on the hill, your companions settle beside you. Lynn presses the last of the mango slices into your hand. "We made it," he says, and then adds, "I think." Farin grunts in agreement, her face relaxed in the way only someone who's fought through storms can truly manage. Avestan closes his journal, finally empty. And Darius plays a final note. It fades into the air like a ribbon let loose. You reach for your pouch, remove the coin. It no longer burns. It no longer pulls. It simply exists, an artifact of who you were. You set it on a rock. Let the wind take it. You don't need it anymore. Not because the spiral is over, but because it's in you now. You stand, and the others rise with you. Not with fanfare, just a quiet knowing. You walk again, but not to reach a place. You walk, to carry the spiral forward, to become the road for someone else. For the next question, the next forgetting, the next name waiting to be remembered. And as your feet touch the dust one more time, you realize you're no longer following the path. You are the path, the one they will whisper about in centuries to come.
The one marked not by stones, but by stories.
Now breathe slowly, let your shoulders sink a little deeper into the bed. Feel the weight of your body soften against the mattress. There's no need to hold on to anything right now, not the coins, not the questions, not even the spiral. Everything you've seen is part of you. Every dusty footprint, every echoing footstep, every moment of silence that carried your name, all of it has folded neatly into the quiet of this moment. You are not lost. You are not unfinished. You are exactly where the road was always leading. Let that thought settle in your chest like a warm stone. Let it radiate out slowly, easing the tension in your jaw, in your hands, in the space between each breath. You've walked far enough for today. The spiral will keep spinning, and when it's time to step forward again, you'll know. You'll feel it like the pull of a melody you once heard as a child, like a name gently spoken from just beyond the veil of sleep. But for now, drift. Let your eyelids grow heavier. Let the road wind away into starlight. there's nothing more to do. You've already arrived, and tomorrow the road will remember you. It always does. End of script. Sweet dreams.